Yeah, he does. Yeah, he said.
We should have it in here. Yeah. Table it and go to. Or after.
We still need to fill the 2 pages. Putting it on, and the vacancies that.
I did, so really say something like that. You have to wait one more minute.
I'm ready to as well.
Well, are y'all ready? Yes. Is the city attorney planning to be here this evening?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I think we can start with that one.
I said 6, so I don't know where it is. Is that 5 or 6?
It says 5.
It says 5.
It's supposed to be 6.
I see shadows coming out. It says like-
In 6 months.
Good evening, sir.
How are y'all?
Oh,
Please tell me you weren't waiting for me.
We were talking about you.
Yeah, we're actually, we're talking about waiting for you. Good things go first. This is just. Commissioners, are y'all ready?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6 o'clock, March 23rd, 2022. We are adjourning calling to order the city commission meeting. Roll call. Zone 1.
Here.
Zone 2. Here. Zone 3. And zone 4 is going to be a little late this evening. We'll make an announcement for the record when he joins us. Mayor is here also, city administrator, city attorney, and members of the community. Do we have any? Oh. Let's stand for prayer and pledge allegiance. Bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for being here with us this evening. We ask that you make this meeting profitable for the city, that we conduct it in good order, and get some really good things done. Bless our efforts. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, and justice for all. I would like to add to the agenda an item 5H, charter review, just for discussion. I don't want to take any action, but I do want to discuss it a little bit. Keep that discussion foremost in our thoughts and minds as time goes on. By next meeting, we will be in need of taking some action to keep it moving forward. So the charter review, item 5H. Any other additions or deletions or modifications to the agenda? I'll make one more. I would like to delay item 5A until Commissioner Connell arrives, discussing Parks and Playground. I think the entire commission should be present for that, if at all possible. So we will just effectively table item 5A until the entire commission is here, if that's okay. Any other additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda? Hearing none, let's move to item 5B, water meters. Mr. City Administrator, would you like to?
Guys, I would like to, Mayor, members of the commission, as we've done for a good deal of time since approximately 2017, the meters purchased from the Meter Corporation in 2015 began to fail. And by failing, I mean they simply did not record the flow of water. In our other respect, they were fine when the water continued to go through. It didn't affect the customers, just affected our delinquency. At the present time, I can report to you that we have approximately 500 failures during that period, 2017 to present. Of that, we replaced approximately 200. We still have 300 that are not functional. We have tried to calculate the total loss and the annual loss. Yeah. Well, I just terminate the really nice back calculation. And if we have 30 meters fail every quarter, and we can replace 50 meters a quarter, it'll take us 5 years just to replace the 300 meters of broken right now. And there's no reason to believe that the 1,200 meters that are out there, the same design, the same quality, the same manufacturer won't fail eventually. So we have a real genuine problem. Now, as I said before, and it bears repeating, these meters have failed in every application that has been put in Howard County to various states around the country. It has nothing to do with the city. It just has to do with very bad design. Meters were quickly taken off the market, not sold. In the process, we do have 1,500 very bad meters. When we get them replaced, we're always replacing the brand new model, and not having difficulty with those models. But we're not receiving a sufficient number to replace an indoor quickly dimension of 50 a quarter, and that's probably optimistic of that. And we have approximately 30 that fail on a quarterly basis. On an annual basis, annually about $180,000 loss. But it's important to know we really can't calculate how much we're losing. We're only calculating that as the average. If those 300 people happen to be the biggest users of water, they lost is substantially better than that. Micro users, which is substantially less. There is a significant number. It comes into play later on to talk about grant funding. So we would like some direction from you. Our recommendation is that you go out and seek another manufacturer. I've talked about Census. Census has a very valid, piggybackable bid in Sanford right now. It's current, it was done in January. Competitive bid. Census, the leader that we've had prior to the Mueller. One of our people, case in point, was 17 years, and he worked on Census, we had Census in 2013. His opinion, we never had a problem with him, it worked very well. County's been using Census for 25 years, and they don't have any problems with So that would be my logical choice for the grant. And this is that we do. We want to do it through the process, whether it's bidding again, if you want to accept their numbers. The numbers are approximately $132 per meter. And add all the radio read software, it's about $519,000, which is a substantial number. Now, in our Fresh Eyes investigation, at least the field study portion of it, that occurred, the people of U.S. Water volunteered that we could, in their opinion, be eligible for a $500,000 loan from DEP. A loan that would be at least 50% of your, meaning you won't have to pay back half of it. And with the loss that we sustained, the loss itself, new increased revenue would pay off principally in 5 years. Principal interest. So there is a very valid way to fund the whole thing and make it all happen. But that's the direction I need. You know, we could do the, you know, continually you change 50 a quarter, and let's say 5 years you get all the 300 are bad now, they'll be more bad by that time. And eventually, there's no reason to think it'll be 1,200 will be bad at some point. So we don't want to, go with that same plan, that same potential. Now, there is something in the warranty. The warranty says they will replace the meters with new meters, and they are doing that. They'll send them 50, they'll send us 50. Trouble is, they don't send their lead time on sending back meters is, I think, 12 to 15 weeks now, which is an unusually long period of time. I will tell you though, I talked to Census about how quickly they deliver 1,500 meters, and they said, if we're lucky, maybe 6 months, but that's if we're lucky. And we haven't been terribly lucky. So we're down on that. But it's what I'm trying to tell you is everybody's having the same problem with supplies and manufacturing and labor problems and all kinds of things. So that does, interestingly enough, though, give us an opportunity to go to some funding mechanisms. U.S. Water did tell us about the funding for the meters, when we would probably be able to get them through Florida Rural Water Association. They would actually charge us, or at least using Crystal River, City Crystal River as an example, we charge them $9,000 to obtain a multi-million-dollar grant at 50% prohibitive. U.S. Water suggested we could probably get more, but I want to be conservative, so we usually stick with the 50% number for calculations. And so that, but even having a friend in Tallahassee, which this engineer is that works for Rural Water, it still takes time in Tallahassee to make things happen. And even when you get the grant, as an example, we got the $180,000 grant for the city hall, and that was wonderful. The bill doesn't become effective until July 1, no matter when the governor signs it. So it'll be after that, we'll hear from the Department of State and what are the rules and regulations. So for us to think about even beginning to spend that will probably be early fall. So I'm just illustrating that when we're talking about getting grants, they don't happen overnight. Which in this case may be a semi-luxury, they have the time to be able to get funding for the different things we need funding for. Now, there is one other thing that I want to mention to you. Scott has reviewed the warranty with the Mueller meters. I think he's read the page about 10 times. Keep trying to find little things he missed the first time, but there is one section in there that says, at the company's option, they can negotiate with us on a lump sum. Instead of replacing meter for meter, they will give us a lump sum dollar value to be negotiated, I presume, and then we could use that money as we see fit to purchase other meters. I guess that's the essence of it, right? Yes. And we could do that, and that may be, and I haven't even calculated that number into paying off the loan or the grant for the meters from DEP, but that would certainly make it more feasible to be able to pay off much sooner than that. We will have a PR problem, and I think we recognize it very quickly. We have 300 people that are getting an absolute minimum bill, 75, 36, or whatever that is a month, a quarter. And may or may not realize that they're not paying for any water flow. And if we change these meters out, we're going to have 300 customers that will, wow, what happened to our bill? It went up, whatever it is. And that will be, we'll need abundant explanation for that. It would still probably would take a long time, but abundant presentation on that. And I would just caution that it's not avoidable, it's gonna happen no matter what. So that's the water meter situation, and it leads in a little bit to the next item, C, on grant funding. If you want, let me just continue there, and it kind of leads into it, so, let me stop, because I do need a direction on, do you want us to stay with Mueller, and do the 30 in and the $50, or whatever it is? It is a long, slow process, and we're gonna be living with the problem for a very long time. I would not recommend that, although somebody will be able to complain that, wow, you left 1,200 meters that were working perfectly in the ground. Why did you do that? You wasted all the money we spent in 2015. But I think we're being very judicious in taking the grant that we are able to obtain, using the state's money to swap out. It won't cost us anything extra to swap that out and get a good system to work from now on. And I was talking to Mayor, and I will tell you that not only does the census have a very good meter that we've used before and have faith in, but they also have a reader, a radio read system. We have one now, but you have to drive the truck down the street. The radio reads all the meters as you go down, and they all turn green. It's kind of an interesting feature. The one with Census bought out a pager company a number of years ago. And the pager company had frequencies reserved for all their pagers across the country. And they operated 2 milliwatts or 2 watts, I'm not sure what it is, but about 10 times the strength of the traditional meter reading frequencies. And if we go with them, we're actually issued a FCC license for that radio read system. We have one antenna, which I would propose to put up at the Public Works area. It should be 100 feet up to get over the trees. And every day that system will report to the antenna and report the usage of that particular meter every day. And that means every morning we'll have a report on every meter that has a greater flow than the parameters we put in for that particular meter. If a family has 10 kids, they have a lot more, so the parameters higher there, lower there, whatever. So every morning we will be able to call people and say, I think you've got a problem with your water meter. Instead of waiting 6 or 3 months and then say, you not only got a problem, I got a cubic bill. And that doesn't make a lot of sense. So that is a really neat feature with that I have to mention, because it really, one of the things we've had concerning us are people who, the church came in and they had a huge bill. And we couldn't figure out why. With our present system, we can read when the meter went bad and fluctuations in the reading over the 3 months, but that's all it says. And by the end of the 3 months, that's not a big help when the problem's back here. But again, the county uses it. They do that same situation every Tuesday. They call their customers and have other parameter readings. And they said they get nothing but praise for, oh my God, thank you. Didn't realize we had a problem, we fixed it, thank you very much. Now, sometimes we'll have the other parameters and we'll do logical readings. So yeah, we'll still swimming pool this weekend. So that's fine, all right. So no problem, just to let you know. Ooh, thanks for watching out. The nice lady in that Ranger reported to us, I can't remember her name, lives in the Villas. She had a leak we didn't know. It was reported to her by Duke Energy. Duke Energy called, and said, your electrical consumption just spiked. What's the problem? And she, I don't know. She said, check your hot water heater. Well, she did, and her hot water heater was heating a lot of cold water every day, 24 hours a day, because she had a leaky system in her hot water system. So, because of their generosity and calling to her attention, she was able to save herself, a very big deal by fixing her hot water. And that's the kind of system we have with our system on water. So it really is an advanced system. It's a much more customer-friendly system. There are more expensive meters that I would advocate we buy perhaps instead of 1,500 basic, have those. We purchased probably 50 others of the expensive ones. The expensive ones have a whole bunch of unique features. they do automatically water quality tests, chlorine in the water, chemicals in the water. I'm gonna take, it's probably about 5 different readings on the quality of the water going through there. They also are operable by the city from a computer to control. And if we have a situation, the person didn't get a bill, we don't have to send the person out, turn off the water, the person comes in, pays the bill, and we have to send the person back out, turn the water on. We simply push a button, and the water goes off. And then when the bill's paid, we push another button, and the water comes on. It would be very, very efficient for us to be able to do that. Obviously, we don't need very many of those. Now, we would like to have 50, I would place strategically around the city. So we have calls, high chlorine, chlorine smell, whatever it is, around the city. We can test them all. We have this reading here, we don't have it down here, get a much more accurate reading of where a situation would be. And then, again, if we have our list of our regular people, we can deal with them much more efficiently too. You all, you don't predict at the beginning of the quarter who will have on the product list at the end of the quarter. But it'll be much easier for us to be able to deal with those customers. So I would advocate that we proceed along the path, two paths. One path is we ask Scott to negotiate with Mueller for a lump sum buyout of the property and give a cash settlement of whatever. Second is, maybe three, we begin negotiation with DEP for a grant for the water meters to purchase a new water meter system from Census and be able to fund it through the grant. And we'll know fairly quickly, what our chances are of doing that. Third, that we proceed along the lines, not to actually sign a contract, but do whatever is necessary to be prepared to sign a contract with Census for the 1,500 and the 50 super meters. So when we do have the funding lined up, we do have the funds that we are able to get them from you. Now they may say, no, we're just going to send 50 meters every quarter, which maybe we'll probably end up mentioning that now when we did, we'll find like 200-300 of them put them on eBay. We have brand new meters for them and sell them, and that's probably highly illegal. It's a hotel, isn't it?
I don't think it would be illegal for the city to sell surplus product.
Well, so anyway, that's it. Yeah.
It'd be illegal if you took the money home.
That's true. No, don't do that, but it would be interesting. But, so that's the kind of direction we're looking for. If you agree with us that we have the opportunity to make not only significant advances in the technology we use, we have the advantage now to correct a long-standing problem with the meters and how they're read and the timeliness of the reporting to us. One of the things that everybody has been suggesting to us ever since we've been talking about it, and by that I mean, Florida Rural Water, and US Water, ESI, is that we ought to go to court for a month or so quarter. And it's more work for the city, but it's more normal for the citizens. Citizens, particularly those that are not in the elevated economic development or economic strata, it's tough to budget for a water bill when it comes every 3 months. You just forget about it. You pay it and then that's a chunk of money. Then you recuperate in 2 months. But if we did every month, people would much more easily budget their resources for that. And if the thing is correct, they're usually beneath the meter. Water consumption pretty consistent.
Just answer
That would be nice.
it. Just think
You
about it.
know, Scott,
I'll just hit the button.
But the bills are usually fairly consistent quarter to quarter, so if we can get it on a monthly basis, again, it'll be more effort, but I think it'll be much better received by the citizens to have a water bill that they can budget more appropriately. Because, nevertheless, I have to tell you, we do feel sorry for a lot of people. They really are having difficult things when it comes to one quarter. If they're not budgeting, it's their fault, they haven't budgeted for it. some people just don't have it.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Administrator. We've got 4 basic things to think about doing. Couple of that we need to do now. Do we want to direct the city attorney to work towards a lump sum settlement? It's just kind of recounting what to go with. Do we want to do the lump sum settlement? Do we want to pursue grant monies? Do we want to pursue a contract with census? We'll have 6 months towards that. If this goes as the second part of those options, and to move towards a monthly billing, which probably also move until these meters are in. So that's what we've been talking about. Thank you, Mr. Connell, Commissioner Connell, Vice Mayor Connell, for joining us. Understand your conflict, and it's good to have you with us.
Yeah, for the record, I joined the meeting at 6:24.
Mayor, if I could say one thing, I think the first question for y'all to answer is, do you want to change meters to go to the meter? Because if you don't, if the commission doesn't want to change to new meters, then renegotiating the settlement is not the best option. The best option would be to have new or keep replacing the meters and we'll get them all replaced. If the option, if the commission decides, yes, we are going to change meters, then yes, negotiating a new or right away so they don't send us any more replacement meters that we don't need is definitely the appropriate thing to do. It's the more money they're willing to give us. But I think the first question is, are you willing to change meters? That really kind of directs it to pass.
That makes sense. Well, Commissioner, over to y'all.
I make a motion that the staff work on transitioning back to the census meter system, to research all funding options, to research moving to monthly billing, and to include the, any settlement on the new, bad new meters.
I'll second that.
What I would suggest we do in the, regard to pursuing the settlement is we see what top dollar we're willing to give. And so obviously the option would be they pay that money and then they're no longer obligated to replace our meters, or we may think it's better to, that's ridiculous, a low amount of money, they can give us the meters and we'll turn around and sell them, or whatever y'all talk about. So we would bring back obviously that settlement to you.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Eckert and a second from Commissioner Basso to transition to the census meter system for staff to research the funding opportunities and to, you want that in the settlement part, you want that in this motion?
Yeah.
And to
Because that's a fund.
look towards a settlement, our settlement options with, what's the name of the company we have now? Mueller. To, for the city attorney to look into settlement options with Mueller.
Next question. Over discussion, Commissioner Bass, this question is open to anybody who really wants to answer. Does anybody have confidence in the current meter we have? So I think that answers the question whether we should move on to new meters or not. My thought process is, although it makes sense to replace them 300 immediately and get them online, all of them need to be replaced. And so when we look at swapping them out, I would aim towards swapping ones that are broken first, whereas typically when a company comes in from citywide, they take a block, and you're looking at block and move out. And I don't know how difficult it is, do you understand what I'm saying? Rather than jumping all over the city to look. And I don't think we're fortunate enough to have all of the batteries in one spot forever. So, but if it's going to take time to get the meters to replace them all, that's the path that I would go down. The second thing is the super meter. What's the difference in cost between the regular meter and the super meter?
One is $133 and the super meter is $300.
300.
Okay. I like your concept of spotting them around so you can be able to see that they're done. I think that I would want one of the water companies, either ECQ, District National Plan, or to kind of give us some guidance as to where they think these super meters might be placed, because we may not need to, okay? We may not. usually if there's trunk line in a certain direction, one or two in that area is pretty much.
I just pulled that number out here.
Right.
And I think I informed that number, yeah.
And one thing I failed to mention, and it's important, the proposal from Census includes installation. So if we do not have to pay extra or use our own people for installation of new meters, we would do it one time, and it's a good cost. So, I think that's important. Because it's expensive to install meters. Anyway, that's all.
I just think it was sold a bill of goods and
No, I think it was
it sounded great at the time.
We weren't the only ones.
yeah, it was a new good technology on paper, didn't work out in reality, as the city attorney says. A lot of people got burned by that.
And this company, we piggybacked Collier County's contract, and they have 10,000 on meters in Collier.
So we had a couple, I think he brought us a couple of newspaper articles from companies or cities in California
Yeah, it was a major
and nationwide. Well, there's a motion on the table. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
The meters, are we just pulling it together all the time, or are we trying to get in a couple at a time, like 300? Are they sending us shipments, or what is the?
Yeah, what they told us is we take, when we have 50 out of the ground and then replace them with 50 they send us through, so we send that 50 back to them, and then anywhere from 12 to 15 weeks later, they will ship us another.
I'm sorry, I meant census. I meant census, so I apologize, so the company.
Well, the new company,
The new company.
The new companies will send us all at one time, but don't count on them for at least 6 months.
Okay, so they can't break that up to get it faster.
No. We're gonna have to live with, if you go with the new company, you have to live with the old group for at least 6 months. So we've been living with it for 2 or 3 years.
The last thing that I was going to say is, I would send a letter out and notify everyone who's on a meter that's currently broken, that they're in the process of having the new meter fixed, and that the rates will go up when the meter goes on, because it's currently not being charged, for anything about home use.
Yeah.
I mean, get ahead of it. Don't switch the meter out, all of a sudden they double the bill, and then they're all on here.
and blaming the meters.
They'll be reading their water bills very carefully for 2 quarters, and nothing will happen,
Yeah.
relax, and all of a sudden, wham. So, yeah.
They shouldn't be surprised if your bill shouldn't be the exact same amount of work. I mean, that's pretty hard to do.
True. I may not see it.
I would send a letter out to all the residents to let them know that the meters are going to be swapped out in the future. And that their bills may change because of it.
And
That's a good idea.
we're going to explore the quarterly for the monthly billing, so it'll be easier to budget. And we'll have a system that will report to us almost immediately if it's a leak in your system. That's all very positive features. Yes, I like that.
Any further discussion on this motion?
I'd like to see the letter before it goes out.
You want to see the letter?
Before it goes out, sure.
Oh, yeah.
We have time. We have 6 months. Not get that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question. Zone 1,
Yes.
zone 2,
Yes.
zone 3,
Yes.
zone 4,
I abstain.
abstain.
But you technically, you really can't.
I wasn't here for for the discussion for the item.
The law requires you to vote on everything unless you have a conflict of interest.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay, and zone, or excuse me, Mayor votes yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Move to item 5C, pay for grant funding. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. And I should have asked earlier, before the vote, I apologize. Ms. Bishop has a note here to address this. Ms. Bishop?
The building is not the meters, but it's not going on. Is it true that if Austin can acquire a Class C license through the bill, we announce that company for
I do not know. Anybody want to address that?
Technically, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend him get a Class C license, but he is spread very thin right now. And I think it would be important to have companies at least work on the wells, if not the entire system, and be dedicated to it. It's, when you have one person doing it, I mean, there's more vacation, more weekends, more holidays, and they have to be 30 minutes each system every day. And that's way too much to ask for one person. So, yeah, he can do it, but I think it would be inhumane and not very efficient.
Does that answer your question?
Not really, because you're gonna pay them an extra money when you get the Class C license. I don't understand why we're paying extra money if you can't even do your job.
You pay me a lot of money, I should do
And you don't do your job.
We get a vacation.
it.
Well,
That would
there's
be-
ways around that, I'm sure.
Well, I know what you're saying, and, it technically is possible, you just need that one Class C out there. But just give you an example, the county has crews, they have water and sewer. So if there are ABC licenses for water and sewer, and all of their crews, and I don't know, 12 or 15, they're all duly qualified for 8 licenses. So it's, they're just saying our people are well trained to do the job. They have one person, that person, it's just not very good.
I would like to interject here and say I don't really want to make this time of a public forum or speaking on issues, a time for staff to have to attend to management practice.
No, I just wanted to know, why are we gonna pay him extra if he can't do it? Well, you're gonna have to have a third party in here anyways.
Okay, well, we'll just, you're welcome to ask that question and we should
I can
get
think
you an
of
answer, but I don't think we can do it on the fly.
I can think of one good reason. If there's an emergency situation, and we have somebody who's qualified, we have an extra layer of help. If we don't have that person who's qualified, we don't. And that person is probably going to be the person who's going to be called in the case of an emergency. So I just think it's a small price to pay for having a smarter, more qualified staff.
Okay.
Thank you. And I'm not trying to shoot you down, I'm just, it's a kind of a thing I don't want to really get into, back and forth, defending things on the
No, it's
fly
fine.
during the commission meeting. I don't mind any questions being asked, that's perfectly acceptable. And any issues being raised, that's of course perfectly acceptable. But having to defend on the fly like this is staff, I don't want to put them in that position on a regular basis.
I know. I think we should go with the income position. That's okay.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you with that, I think.
We don't want to.
All right, item C, need for grant money, Mr. Bishop. Oh, no. What? Yes, we can move back to item A since Mr. Connell is here. We postponed item A discussion concerning the future of Parks and Playground Committee. So we had a full commission present, full commission is not present. Mr. Administrator, would you like to introduce this topic?
I will give you a brief Reader's Digest synopsis since we talked about it a number of occasions. In the year 2020, the commission adopted resolution 2020-10, which provided for the citizen input committee for all Daytona parks and playgrounds. That particular resolution had a sunset provision in it that now occurs in July of this year, 2022. So the question is, should the committee be perpetuated, extended, whatever you want to call it? And if the answer is yes, then there are a series of sub-questions that go along with it. Right now, we only have 3 members, we need to be fleshed out to additional. What, if any, are responsibilities to be delineated for that committee? So that work would have to occur if the first question is yes. The first question is no. we simply move on to the city agenda. So I think that's really the threshold question. And the city attorney said the threshold question before was, you want to keep the meter threshold? So there's a threshold question, and once you answer that, we will move on to the main portion.
So I'll open this to discussion to the Commissioner Atkins.
Why are we discussing this now when we got until July to decide on, or June to decide on if we're going to extend the committee or not?
Well, not to speak for the committee, but they have not been able to hold a meeting, for probably 4 or 5 months, not longer, in the last year. Simply because there are 3 members and 2 routinely show up and perform through, and there has been some reluctance, I think, on the part of everyone to not appoint people who have applied, simply because it's been unknown as to whether or not the committee is going to be in existence beyond July. And also, the city attorney, I think our last meeting discussion, brought up a number of serious concerns he has with the committee being governed by the Sunshine Law, and naturally operating outdoors, road trips, whatever, and not having, you have to have a call meeting, you have to have a facility for the public to be present, for the whole thing. It just makes it difficult when your area of responsibility is very outdoor. To have that group meet in a room to talk about everything that's happening outside, seems very difficult. So that's, I think, the reason that this, if right now the committee has no direction, they meet and have them for temporary monthly, but they're not having to go on for 5 months.
Well, when the committee was put together and started in 2021, they didn't get the guidance on requirements of sunshine. There was a lot of confusion over the issue, but they were able to travel around, they ended up traveling around, and they were able to find a lot of discrepancy in the cards and stuff that have been corrected over those periods of time by various groups and organizations in the city and stuff like that. But they understand the requirement of sunshine, so I think we're creating a catch-22, and we said, well, we need to decide what we're gonna do, because they can't have a meeting on that form when they've got applications sitting there that we can keep on delaying and postponing and tabling and carrying on and stuff like that. Get the vacancies filled, and they can have a meeting.
Indeed, that's why we need to decide that we need a council meeting regardless of the membership. It's the entity itself we're discussing. We're not discussing the function of the committee, whether it's volunteer or whether it's by ordinance. It's the entity itself that we should be centered our discussion about. Once the entity itself has decided upon this commission, that will drive the rest, whether they're going to bring in new appointments or whether or not they just turn into a volunteer committee. That's all our decision is right now. Just, is it an entity that this city commission needs?
Well, I say yes, because everything that they've been able to do, even the past parks committees and boards and everybody that have done things, have been able to bring things to the city that has created great improvements. They have too. And I'm beginning to think that this whole issue is coming over animosities and revenges from the 2020 election time period. And everybody's trying to get revenge against the people who ran for office during that time and now are citizens of the city and sitting on the boards. And I think all of the revenges and animosities and everything need to stop, and we need to bring the city forward and bring us together instead of all this fighting between all the different groups.
And again, it's the entity itself that we need to decide upon, and the product and the function of the entity, not the politics, not the individuals, not us. It's us as a commission. Do we need function of a Parks and Recreation Committee set by ordinance, set by sunshine, with the reporting requirements as well too, or do we need a more I wouldn't even say that. If we need the entity, we'll decide that in our ordinance. If not, then the group will decide that it's functioning on its own.
Okay, Chair.
Thank you, that's all.
That's fine. Chair recognizes Commissioner Bassett.
The reason that we're discussing this is because in a meeting 3 or 4 months ago, it came to everyone's collective idea that we did not give you good direction, and you guys understood that we did not give you good direction. Correct, is that correct? Am I?
Am I allowed to speak?
Sure, as far as I'm concerned, I mean,
We were talking.
well, let me finish and then you can. So with that said, I said, okay, if there needs to be a collective direction, then we need to have a workshop to decide what is the function of this board, what are they supposed to do, how are they supposed to respond, and how is it going to be set up. And that's what I called for at that time as a workshop, in order to determine what exactly is this group going to do. Now, I have in my mind what I think they should do. I think probably everyone here has an idea of what we should do, and I think you probably have an idea of what you should do. But rather than there being multiple minds floating around the room, all with ideas that probably have pieces to play, why can't you get it all down in one piece so we have an understanding? Because I can tell you what I don't need. I do not need an advisory board that doesn't support this commission. That's what I don't need. And if that's what I'm going to get, then I'm not interested.
I understand. Another thing that came about right about the time about 3 to 4 months ago, it was brought to our attention by or at least my attention, because that's when I first started, about the issues with the sunshine. And I know that their history there, that's fine. It wasn't well explained, and nobody was doing anything inherently wrong, but the inherent difficulties of it were brought to our attention. And so in my ethics training, I went to 2 different ethics training, I brought it up and tried to find some ways not around the sunshine law, but to effectively work within it. And both our city attorney and each of the other attorneys that I spoke to at those meetings had the same basic advice, that it's very difficult for a Parks and Rec type committee to work together in a city. Now, there are ways that we can rein it in, and this is what we would get to if we decide to keep it. And I understand we haven't decided that yet, but if we decide to keep it, we can narrowly define it to where it's done in a public setting, in a meeting, like this one, and everything's done under sunshine and properly reported and properly noticed and all of the things that requires. But it would be a very different entity than what we have had historically. That's fine, it's just where we are. That's not a value judgment, it's just kind of where we are. Commissioner?
The previous committee was set up as the Parks Playground Committee to develop the playground at Lake Park.
And
So this one has the committee to develop the Melissa Park.
there are items before us, you're correct. And they've done good things on previous things, and there are
And
items.
that way they're guided, that they bring up any issues, any improvements that need to be done with Melissa Park.
I think this is a good opportunity.
It narrows their scope though,
Narrows it down.
but as an official city committee, set up by ordinance, that scope cannot be that narrow.
I think maybe it can, but we'll get there. Right now, and that's an interesting question, we'll have to get back to that.
Well, it can't be limited just to one park, right?
Oh, no, not to one.
That's my
park,
point.
But to one assignment by the commission. We could say.
Again, it's the entity first before we start deciding what the focus is going to be of the committee.
Correct, I understand. An example that the city administrator and I spoke about earlier today was the PLDRC. The PLDRC has not met for several months because we didn't have anything, the commission, didn't have anything for them to do. They work on very specific projects at our behest and our request, or best way to say that is. And we can narrowly define parks and playground committee to be that might be a way for that to work. I do want to include the people here that have a very vested interest in this and that have worked hard on this. So I'll start with Starlin Bishop, if you had your card in first.
I'm gonna hold mine to the public.
Okay, then Ann, if you could state your name for the record. And address. Okay.
Campus is 170 West Spring Avenue. I'm confused about the sunshine component of this. Why is this committee governed by sunshine? They are an advisory committee, and anything that they come up with that has to come to you all, they have no authority to approve anything.
It's still appointed by the city, because they are appointed by the city. It's still a city committee, it's created by the city.
Well, but
But it doesn't matter if it's fine, they have final say, final authority, or just purely advisory.
okay, so the PLDRC is governed by sunshine.
Yeah.
They have to file financial disclosure.
No, they don't.
And I did, oh, yeah,
Yeah, the LDRC.
oh, yeah.
Do you think that's a fine?
That's an actual, in the charter,
I wasn't aware of
that's
that.
established.
It's a state law.
The historic,
Preservation board?
board, I don't know that they're governed by sunshine.
Yeah,
they are.
That would be quiet, okay, but an advisory group,
They're all advisory.
They're all advisory.
But this- yes, but the parks.
I understand.
I'm having a hard time with the sunshine
Let me-
component of that.
Let me reflect this back to you for just a second. Your question is, if I understand it, and that's why I wanted to ask, I'm asking you if I understand the question. Now, your question is, since you're not taking any direct action, you're only creating some advice for the commission, doesn't seem like you would need to be governed by sunshine law. But the reality is, the answer to that question, if that's the right question, if I'm not understanding your question, the reality is that yes, you're definitely governed by the sunshine law. If we appoint a committee to do virtually anything, that committee acting under us is governed by the same sunshine law of every other government.
If not, what could happen is that could break all sunshine laws they want to. Quite frankly, I'm not a fan of sunshine laws. They keep good people from operating well. But if you take a separate group, they can break all sunshine laws, do whatever they want, bring a recommendation to the commission, it's not breaking it, they just take that recommendation, right? And we, in effect, have broken the sunshine law by just taking the advice. Do you understand?
Well, but if the recommendation comes before a public meeting and.
It doesn't matter.
It-
When-
Logically, it makes sense,
Yeah.
but legally, it doesn't work.
Okay,
And we have another blue card from Nancy here.
So I'm opposed to sunshine law. We simply were not aware, no one disclosed that, as I have said before. I believe even if we don't have the same ideas as someone on the commission, it doesn't mean we can't work for our city or we can't work with the commission. That's a sign of a good leader, is when we can all work together and bring us together and not continually dividing us for whatever reasons. I have worked on Melissa Park for a couple of years now. I'm very vested. I would like to see this through. I know Ms. O'Loughlin's worked on it. I know there are a lot of people in our community. We've done great things in the year. I remember coming out in March last year and seeing Mitchell Park. I didn't even know the history of Mitchell Park. I know Mr. Basso does. He helped fundraise for that park many, many years ago. I was devastated to see Mitchell Park last year, to learn its intricate history here in our city, and look at it now. We don't have people hiding in a dismal playground anymore. They're out. We have various contracts over there. We have brought a light to many good things. Allow us to continue. We were a benefit to your city, to our city. Thank you.
Thank you, we appreciate it. And, okay, so, any further discussion from the commission, I'm sorry? And let's readdress, if you will, Mr. Connell's and also I believe the city attorney's assertion that we need to decide whether or not we want anything. That really wasn't their assertion, I don't want to put that on you, that's long. We'll just leave it on Commissioner Connell. Is the assertion that we need to decide if we want to move forward. So let's keep our, when we get started, we will,
I'm sorry.
But no, Ms. O'Loughlin, please, we appreciate
Mayor
your.
Laughlin, 715 Kingsey Road. Just to kind of piggyback on what Nancy has said, I have been championing Melissa Park probably since 2015, maybe earlier than that. I like emails that go back to back, right? We've done a lot, even though with the sunshine law, and I disputed the attorney in the back, I understand that they just look at it different, I understand what you're saying, no, I'm not disputing you. If everything that the city, the commission says we can do, then we are tied into the same thing you guys are, the sunshine law, is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, that's right, okay, so, all right, so,
What I can tell you is if you have any, even though you're purely advisory, if you have, you can still be under sunshine law if you have decision making ability. If you have the ability to meet and you come up with a recommendation to this body, that puts you under the sunshine law.
so the meeting.
Even advisory.
Okay, so the meeting, and we discussed this at a meeting, over meeting, and say, you know, we've made suggestions, we haven't made a decision, we've just been making suggestions, and we're bringing those suggestions to the commission. Okay, all right. Like Nancy, we had someone that, Charlie put her application in December, Roxanne put her application in, I think, January, and it wasn't really addressed. I mean, we had two citizens, longtime citizens, who wanted to participate in this. Now, I think it's unfair that we are allowed to continue and see Melissa Park to the end. We have put a lot of time and effort. I already work in that area. I work with Nancy James. I think this is something that needs to be done, but we put time into it, and I don't know whether you all realize it or not, but you know the piece of property that we finally got to buy? Do you know who told the city administrator about it? Nancy Weir. She brought the information to him, and he picked up the ball and ran with it, right? So we do serve a purpose in this town. We can do sunshine. I don't know, I think people think that Nancy and I talk all the time about the Parks and Rec. Let me tell you, we both have bigger lives than that. We have bigger lives than that. We have other things to do. And I was late today because I had company came in, I had horses to take care of, and I had to drop key off to a friend. So that's why I was late. I can't be on time, but I always do. Right, so I would really like to see this, whatever you want to call us, continue on. We don't, please. Not another workshop. We have gone through this. The meeting was kicked here.
That's my agenda for tonight.
Okay, it's just,
We're here.
what I like is for you all, just like, Commissioner Acker tried to do, make a motion, put two more on the committee. We can have the city administrator sit and say, okay, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this, or you all do that. This is how we do it. We know how you want us to do now, because we've had enough discussions. So we know that we can't discuss it, we've got to have a meeting. So please at least give us the courtesy of letting us continue on the way it with a couple more people and bring everything to you just like we're supposed to, as the city administrator said. And let us do it. We have people that care about the city. I will be here 25 years this summer. And I have been working in this city as a volunteer for 25 years almost. So I would like to be able to continue, if nothing else, at least let us go through and finish up what we're doing. We've bought a lot of stuff and we want to finish it up very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Loughlin. I appreciate that. And I'll just speak for myself. I very much appreciate the work you all have done. And several things that have been mentioned have been very valuable to the city. I don't believe anybody doesn't appreciate that. And we're just, well, I don't think it calculated it all. Let's go back to the commission does everybody feel they've had a chance to weigh in on this?
Well, here's my problem. And my problem has not changed since day one. When we talked about whether we should continue this committee after we've done the play part. I had a conversation and we've had a conversation with this. What is the direction of this committee? what does this commission want that committee to do? I don't have a good feeling about it. I mean, I don't know, you guys got a crystal ball? Do you know what's going on in my head? Do you know what I want you to do? Do I know what you want to do? I don't. And so my point is, if we don't have an understanding of what you're doing, if we're not agreeing with what you're doing, and if we don't collectively have an understanding, then you guys are just doing what you think you need to do, and the only reason we're just going to continue to allow it to happen, because it's a feel-good thing, because you guys are doing good work.
I don't think necessarily, but do you speak to the LPRC in a
can we have a
historical
record?
pronouncing manner?
I'm sorry?
On the record here.
I'm sorry, I just want to throw in, were you looking for some answers? Commissioner
No,
Bassett?
I'm just trying to say, how can I sit here and decide whether I want to put more people onto a board that I don't know what the roles and responsibility of that board are? And if somebody here knows what they are, would you please write them down on a piece of paper so I can take a look at them?
Well, I'll throw, if I may interject, that as I use the example of PLDRC and historic preservation, those each are presented with specific applications, and they work on those with staff present, in an open meeting at a set time. It's very, very controlled, regulated, and defined. And parks are inherently less defined. If we want to improve Lake Park, that's not an application to put X building on X spot. That's improve. It's very subjective. It's very difficult to make this type of committee have an objective purpose rather than subjective.
Here's a more definitive response. We have at least half a dozen parks in the city. If we want to do something, this commission wants to do something in one of the parks, and Parks and Rec does not agree with us, what is their role?
I must be a loner up here because, from my understanding, when the Parks and Recreation Committee was restarted in 2021, they weren't given very much guidance except let us know what we need to do with the parks. So it gave a broad spectrum and it wasn't narrowed down.
Now, I wish to narrow it down.
Now, that's why I propose that we allow them to continue and give them the assignment to take care of the improvements needed for Melissa Park, because we're still waiting on the playground, we're waiting on the fencing, we're waiting on the basketball court, and all this stuff. Allow them to continue working on what's needed at Melissa Park. And if you want to retitle them the Parks and Recreation Melissa Park Committee, fine.
No.
I mean,
For me, it'd have to be a much broader scope of services.
Then why don't you just pick us on the two people on the board, okay, the board to stay, and then give us the direction. You worry about what direction, give us direction.
That's a very reasonable point, Mr. Bishop.
it sounds like Mr. Connell wants a Parks and Recreation department.
Not at all.
Which,
Not at all.
because we've given you
Not at all.
everything, descriptions on guidance for what the committee should do, how to redo the committee, and everything we do, you keep on denying and saying, no, that ain't it, that ain't it. What do you want? Put it in words instead of just saying, that's not what I want.
Again, the decision is, do we want the entity of a Parks and Rec committee set up by ordinance through this commission or not? That's the only question at hand.
Scott, do we have to do this for ordinance, or can we do it with a motion?
My recommendation has been, and let me give you the complete history, so you all have it right. The Parks Committee was created on Resolution 2019-03 in February of 2019, and it was supposed to last till June of 2019. It was charged to, the City Commission feels a group of citizens would be able to thoroughly research, develop a plan, and present the recommendations to the City Commission for the Park Playground Committee. And then it was extended in July of 2019, it was actually extended for another year. The scope of work was not increased, so it was still for the Playground Park. And then Resolution 2020-10 was approved to expand, and it said the City Commission, Lake County hereby believes it appropriate to increase the scope of Lake Park Playground Review Committee to the Parks and Playground Committee to make recommendations to the City Commission for all of Lake County parks and playgrounds. Now, the recommendations, because we are now still dealing with the same, that's the same resolution, same body, you would have to go back to recommendations would be to research, develop a plan, and present recommendations to the committee, not to the commission. Instead of the Lake Park, it has been expanded to any park in the city. They research, come up with plans to make a recommendation. That's the scope. I have said multiple times, as we can continue to extend this thing, a committee is a short-term thing. You know, our charter review committee, short-term, started and ended. If we are going to continue this committee into the future, my advice is to adopt an ordinance and make it a board instead of a committee. A board is more permanent, whereas a committee is intended to be a short-term function. And that's, you know, the thing, this committee was initially designed to advise the commission to review and come up with plans and make recommendations to the commission on Lake Park Playground. That was their goal. That was the direction. That was expanded to any playground in the city, but it's still to come up with plans and make recommendations. It may be appropriate to go back and narrow the scope of this committee to just, which one are you talking about? Melissa Park. Help us finalize Melissa Park. Then it would be a committee, and maybe it was not a good idea to say, okay, we're just going to expand to everything, because y'all don't have projects, to my knowledge, on every single park in the city. And maybe we change it now, but this committee, instead of Lake Park is finished, this committee, you need to finalize and assist us with Melissa Park. Once that's done, this committee is dissolved. If you come up with another plan on another park in a year, you can reconvene the committee to assist if you want assistance on this next park. Or alternatively, you can come up with a board to continually have a parks committee board. But that would go far beyond the scope here. Because with a parks board, typically what you see those doing is giving advice on parks and recreation activities for the community that, you know, would probably expand way beyond what this committee does. And they get into children's activities, all kinds of that could be expanded. But if this committee was really intended to just give advice on Lake Park, that was it. And then it was just expanded, and it was given 2 years to continue in this expanded role to all parks. But I think as it currently sits, and I agree with Commissioner Powell on this, is that you got to change it. Either, you know, and I'm throwing out the option to say, let's narrow it back down to Melissa Park. So we're switching from Lake to Melissa. You all just focus on Melissa, and once that's done, this is going to be dissolved. Or we look at going to a board that's going to be much broader than what we're talking about here. It'll take a little while to come up with the parameters of that. Now you also have the option of just letting it sunset in July of this year.
Do we need a resolution or just changing the narrowing down?
I would, well, you can only make a resolution with a resolution. So if you do nothing, then the committee expires in July, I think it's this year. If you want to change the scope of the committee, you need, I would recommend you do a new resolution and have their focus just on Melissa Park. Or if the intent is to convert to a board, then we need to do that by ordinance.
So the original charge of this current committee was to look at Lake Park?
All parks.
No.
No,
Lake Park.
just Blake Park in the
Lake
beginning.
Park.
Just Lake Park,
Lake Park Playground.
Playground.
Blake Park Playground per se, that's
That
correct.
was the initial charge, and it was only supposed to be in existence for 6 months.
So, and it's not odd that the committee got together and just looked around and did one thing. So I don't find that at least a bit odd or out of order. It just
The
just
commission
naturally.
considered it, but expanded the scope.
And none of it was done officially, so now we know where we stand historically, the fact that we're out of line now as far as where things are going, so we're trying to pull back in the line. I think it's perfect order of things.
So I make a motion that the staff work on a resolution establishing the Melissa Park committee to advise the commission on all necessary requirements to bring Melissa Park up to more advanced usable condition and to expire December 2022. December 31st, 2022.
I'll second this motion for discussion purposes, because I'll tell you what bothers me more than anything else.
Before you speak forward, let me try and restate this, so that we'll know what we're discussing. Commissioner Eckert has made a motion for staff to work on the resolution.
Well, they usually make the resolutions.
For staff to work on a resolution to expand the Melissa Park Committee, or to create a Melissa Park Committee to advise the commission on the requirements necessary to bring Melissa Park up to a higher standard. And that it would expire on December 31st of 2022. And
I'm basing that expiration date because we said that the park would be done in October. That gives a couple of months for them to review to make sure everything's done right.
And that motion was seconded by Commissioner Basso. Commissioner Basso, if you'd like to speak
Yes.
for that motion. Thank you.
When this resolution gets put together, if the committee is not going to support other decisions that this commission makes towards other parks, that they're going to try to undermine any work that we want to do at other parks because they don't necessarily agree with it, it would cause for immediately disbanding it. And the reason I'm saying this is because if you're going to be involved with parks in this community, okay, then you need to be involved with supporting all of them. And if this commission votes 5-0 to do something, it's not a subordinate committee, it is not their responsibility to come in here and undermine and try to thwart that progress of that particular decision. It's for them to support it.
Is that any additional discussion?
Yes, I would like to.
Commissioner Rogers.
Thank you. I think after the last meeting, I did see the Parks and Recreation Committee, and it was my understanding they had wanted further guidance, and that was the reason for delaying the conversation tonight, and I think they're on the same page after that, but we're on the same page now. I do find a lot of value in the group for Melissa Park. I think it's a wonderful idea. I think something that needs to happen in this park. I'm very pleased to see it starting to come to fruition. So I think I'm definitely in support of what Commissioner Eckert is saying to make it a Melissa Park committee. And thank you for being willing to give service to our city. I think that's very valuable in our city runs all that. So thank you.
Before I call on Ms. Lawton, I'd like to just go through the board to speak in favor against this SSC. Commissioner Connell, did you want to speak to us?
Yeah, briefly, I'm amenable to Commissioner Eckert's motion there, and Rick second, Mr. Basso second, with one caveat. I would like to see all of the committee members subscribe to the 8-hour ethics class that's offered online by the Florida League of Cities. So all of the committee members are aware. 4 hours, I'm sorry. It seemed like 8. Anyway, to subscribe to that class, an introductory class to elected and/or appointed officials, because this is an appointed official now. So I think it's going to behoove all of them, plus their new committee members as they matriculate in, to avail themselves what the Sunshine Law really entails as they operate and conduct themselves as this advisory committee through December. That would be my only caveat, and if I would vote no if that does not happen. So I would expect the city administrator or city manager or our city No, I mean, because she calls herself administrator manager, so, or management administrator. So anyway, as long as staff make sure that these committee members hit that ethics training, I'm good to go.
Commissioner Donald, would you like to expand that to all boards?
Sir?
Would you like to expand that to all boards? I think,
Yeah.
I'm just saying it would be the.
Well, so forgive me then, city administrator, so our current PLDRC and our current HPB, they have not been required to attend the ethics training. I would make a separate motion on that. After we decide what we're doing here, I don't think both of them would be in concert with each other. Is that right, Mr. Simpson? Do we need to package that for both boards, or can we just go ahead and decide this and then I'll follow that up with another motion?
We can, what you want to do is make it a condition of all board members that they take a 4-hour ethics course within a certain period of time.
6 months of their appointment,
Appointment.
right? Because it's only offered like every 90 days or 120 days anyway.
I think we, and some have already taken it.
Indeed.
What we're basically saying is we're making this a requirement. And there may be a good idea that they can't take it together, because that probably is a violation. But because we say.
You see Ms. O'Laughlin even attending a ethics. The 5 of us, we are in potential violation.
You could go to FLC
That's really nice.
online, take a 4-hour ethics class anytime.
Well, and you can take the class together, you just can't talk while you're there.
So anyway, I mean,
Well, I
how,
was thinking that the city could arrange to have it right here.
I think we could do that.
To do it, but then, it would just be the board member, as opposed to going somewhere else for teaching class, so.
Yeah, I think the
I'm trying to think,
FLC
see
could
the
pull
way
that
they
off.
expedite it, and maybe we have to set it up as a meeting, but I don't know.
And I think it would behoove us to have all these advisory, the two boards set by ordinance and the advisory committee would.
Why don't you, recommend a resolution, that's one resolution, that was one motion. And then come back with a second motion, directing staff, bring back another resolution requiring all board members, all appointed board members, and elected board members, and I think all y'all take it.
We all are.
So, but all appointed board members have to take their 4 hours ethics class within 6 months of appointment.
Fair enough.
We bring back 2 resolutions, so it's a new policy in the city.
Essentially. How y'all feel about
But does
that?
that mean we have to
Let's,
vote?
Yeah, we just have to go to this motion before we make that one.
Yeah, I understand that you're wanting that motion, or
I'll
this
wait.
motion contingent
I'll
on
wait.
that motion.
Yeah,
but
no. They're both
we can't quite
they're
do that.
mutually exclusive actually, so let's just continue with it.
Any other discussion on this current motion? Ms. O'Loughlin wanted to.
Well, because I sat in as Rudy did on some of the end of, of the Lake Park thing. They were already working on Melissa Park when I came on board. They were already, there was a drawing by, thank you. There was a drawing by Ariel about what was going there. They actually had put down equipment for that park.
So what you're saying is that they were already going against what the commission had asked them to do.
Well,
That was levity, that was just levity.
I mean, that's a valid point.
But it's,
yeah, but so they did this, so actually, so we weren't really in the wrong
it
because,
was work that needed to be done. So,
and the work that needs to be done. By the way, I agree with you, I think it's a good idea. It's just learning more, if you're gonna volunteer in the city, it gives you a little more information and understanding what it is, so I agree with that. However, Commissioner Vassal, when have we ever gone against? We have done nothing but bring ideas and stuff to the commission, looking at stuff, and I'd like to know when we did something that you suggested and we didn't like, because I cannot think of any, and maybe I know I'm getting old, I'm having a birthday party, and I'm 8 years old, and maybe I missed something. I don't know what it is that we have done to offend you, and I'd really like to know.
You want the answer in the public meeting?
I don't care.
Okay.
I mean, I just don't understand when you said that, I'm going, what did we do?
On multiple occasions, have you questioned, what this commission has voted on to do at Royal Park?
Yes,
Okay, is that questioning this commission?
No, I shouldn't think so, because
Let me say another thing. Nancy, did you send an email to Lee back in June suggesting to the city administrator that we distance ourselves from the League for Better Living, from the Lake Committee, and from the Legacy Group?
Maybe, I don't know. If you could show it to me, maybe.
I'm-
May I say something? When I came on in January, it was as we discussed earlier, it was the scope. Lake Park was done, Melissa Park was going on. I came in January, it was the scope of all the parks. I came on in January, in March, you came to a meeting and did a presentation for the Legacy Group, which I'm gonna say it in a public meeting, but really, that was a violation of your ethics, because your wife is on that board, and you turned around and you voted on that. We passed
All I did was a
that.
presentation.
It doesn't matter. We agreed on it, we heard it,
Mhm.
but we have concerns, and ever since we voiced our concerns, which was our job, because we're representing our parks.
So my point earlier, that if I may interrupt you, my point earlier was that not by fault of yours or by fault of this commission, the job that y'all were doing evolved. That's not a fault, that's just life. And now we're trying to bring it back in and get it back on course and get things in the record properly. And
I respect
we
that.
really didn't want to do this, but do it in proper order. Commissioner Eckert, do you want to weigh in?
From what I recall, when the Legacy project was brought in and introduced and the commission approved the project, we made a promise that a shovel would not be turned at Royal Park until Melissa Park was in progress of being done. Are we now going to break our promise that we made to the citizens?
So that, we're getting off the rails here, Mayor.
No, it's
I
not.
mean,
This is-
I mean, we just have to go ahead and approve this committee and,
We want to tear the scab off this thing, so let's tear the scab off.
okay. If
To
you
answer,
wish.
to answer your question, Roger, if you're a construction company and you have multiple projects going on at the same time, can you not do the planning and the permitting for one job, and you haven't stuck a shovel in the ground on it?
agree with that.
So where have we stuck a shovel in the ground?
I agree with that.
Okay, so why would you
That-
insinuate that we're sticking the shovel in the ground before Melissa Park is done? All we have
That
done.
is issue, see, I listened to the constituents, and that was what a lot of concern was from a lot of people in the community was, is the commission gonna break their promise on starting a new project before another project is,
And
in
don't say
place.
starting a new
So-
project, because it's not starting a project.
well,
it's putting
put the shovel in the ground.
That's the difference. Okay,
That's-
because it takes so long
That
to
is
do
what
that.
I explained to them, is that they're still doing the fundraising, and according to the commitment, they've got to raise 75% of the funds before they can do anything. And they were concerned because we also, at the same time, were having all the parks surveyed for needs and everything, which included around Royal Park, there was a stormwater issue, so it included handling the stormwater. A lot of misinterpretation were thinking that that was part of the parks because of the time in of the location and everything. And trying to, calm the people down and everything on those issues.
I really had no issue with calming the people down. It
Let
was two irrespective projects that were easy to defend. One was road work as a result of a washout. The other one is in process. Again, Mayor, I think we have an intent here at a minimal commission to go ahead and vote to proceed with allowing the committee to remain specific to Melissa Park as long as they go through the ethics training. Everything else, this conversation about tit for tat and all of this does not do us any good here tonight.
Well, and let me weigh in here. As a rule, not as a rule, that's not the right word. My desire as mayor and as chair of this commission is to not have this kind of back and forth with the audience on any kind of regular basis. I'm running I'm letting this go right now, it's more of a workshop feel to it. And I wanted very much for all these ladies in this case, but the people that work on this commission, this committee, to be able to share with us the results and the difficulties and their frustrations, because they have been kind of left hanging many times, by me, and I'll wear that. We tried to bring it to the commission several times, and it's fallen apart several times. I'll wear that as being my fault. So they've been kind of strung along here for months, and I understand the frustration that has been built. But I do hear from everybody on the commission a desire to not throw out the baby with the bathwater, but to find a way for this positive energy to be moved forward. And I agree with that. And we do have a motion on the floor. I will allow y'all to weigh in one more time before we call the question, because thank you. There's a lot to do with it.
Okay, well, no, I appreciate that, and I think we had a good part, as, Mr. Thomas said, we all need to do that. I think that was really a very good suggestion, I really do. The bottom line is, we just have to make sure that anything that's done in the city is done in the sun, out in the sunshine, everybody is aware of it, we know what's going on, and perception is all kinds of things, and I agree, I understand that when you're getting ready to build a house, you have to get the planning, you have to get all those things too. But the problem is, as Commissioner Everett said, it gave a really bad vibe, all right, because he's getting calls, obviously, for different people, and you came and presented something to the committee, and,
Only because Connie was out of town.
okay, okay,
Your presentation, I don't think violates any kind of sunshine.
okay, well, no, I'm not gonna lie, I'm just saying you came as commissioner, you're one of this on the board, because I saw all your information.
I did not come as a commissioner, I came as a citizen to support the people of that project. I was involved with that project 10 years ago, and I was more knowledgeable about what was going on than anybody else. I was the best person to do the presentation.
Okay, all right, well, that's what I said, but this clears the air, and we look at this, and, that's the reason when you said not a shovel is gonna be in, I understand your reasoning, don't.
Yes, I mean, I've supported everything that's happened at Melissa Park. I've supported the purchasing of the land, I've supported everything. I've been over there, I've asked my son to work on giving quotes to the city as cheaply as possible to help support it.
Right.
I'm getting treated, this guy, I'm getting treated like I don't care about Melissa Park, and without you guys here, okay, Melissa Park would not be supported. Let me finish, please. The huge difference between Melissa Park and the Royal Park project is the Royal Park has got citizens of this community, private citizens raising the funds to do the project, whereas we are appropriating money that's given to the city or raised from tax, et cetera, to completely fund Melissa Park. One is a huge difference than the other, and one is a much larger undertaking than the other. I just want my Parks and Rec committee to support this commission's ultimate decision. Hey, if I'm on the wrong end of a 4-1 vote after the meeting, Scott's at 12 o'clock, I'm over it. The next day, I'm going to support the rest of my brothers and sisters that are up here and go forward doing whatever we decided to do today. That's the way I'm supposed to do my job. I just want you guys to do the same thing. I don't want you to continue to question the authority of this board on another park project just because you did not necessarily agree with it. You are an advisory board. We're going to ask you for advice. We're going to respect the work that you do. We're going to take your advice, consider it, and then move on. Once we move on, I expect you to move with us, not fight us.
All right.
That's my point.
Okay, no, I understand what you're saying. Wait a minute, just give me a second to get me brain. It just made us, I personally, I'm not gonna agree, I personally felt that when it came, seeing what's being done here, because I worked so long about Melissa Park. And, I know, okay, just give me a second here, get my brain back, all right. I understand what you're saying, this is private citizens doing this. And now, but basically what you're saying is, private citizens doing this, but now we have to spend city money. This is how I'm getting it, okay, just understand that. But then we have to spend money on Melissa Park. Well, Melissa Park has been there for years. It was way, so for us to use, we have to have this money to bring it up to where it should have been done years ago when I first started with it. You know, it's like, this is how I'm getting it, okay, just bear with me on it. I'm getting it like, well, we're spending money on Melissa Park, but we're having to do this as private citizens. We need private citizens in Ironton. You all wanted something done there. That was a project, like you said, 10 years ago, that you were part of, and now it's put in the future, but most people didn't know about it, so I didn't. But that's what I'm saying, it sounds like you're spending money on Melissa Park, which I think it should be. It's been left hanging for all these years, so that's exactly where I'm coming from. Can we get, if you want to do that, great.
Thank
Private citizens, thank you.
Ms. Fisher?
So I find it funny that you want to put somebody on a board, but you want to control their thoughts and their mind as to what they're allowed to question. Don't question the commission. I'm sorry, I'm gonna be questioning everything the commission does. And that project down at Royal Park, you're right, that is private citizens. Not everybody in town is on board for that. And I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. So, if you were to bring up emails, did you send an email to the mayor telling him to move public forum to the end of the meetings?
Oh, I think I personally
Yeah.
sent it to him.
Yeah, and you sent an email for it too. So, let's talk, and I've got others too, so if we want to talk about emails, we can do that.
And see, this is part of the problem.
Yeah, this is a problem.
There's a trust issue.
Yes, there is.
And so how do you become an advisory board to me if you don't trust me?
We communicate, we talk, and we communicate.
Ms. Weir, go ahead.
I just want to add, there's been a lot of good things said. Communication is key for all of us. We're all neighbors, and we all live here. Some of us want something a little bit different, but we're all gonna live here. Thank you. I do want to point out just one thing that I think is very important when we're talking and reviewing all these things that have happened. Last year, we didn't have the CARES Act money. We didn't have the funds. Like I mentioned, Mitchell Park was neglected. Royal Park, all the parks have been neglected for a long time. I'm not blaming, I'm just saying this is how it was. Look at us now from a year ago, and we haven't even used the CARES Act money. I think those are things that we need to think about. We have opportunity now that we didn't have then. Instead of fighting and disliking and creating division, can't we all work together for the better of all of us and not just one or two? Somewhere in there?
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm gonna throw in a couple of my thoughts. One, following right on what Ms. Weir is saying, that we do have a lot of money coming down the pike, the ARPA funds. Is that what you mean by CARES Act, or is that a separate thing?
I believe that is.
We have a bunch of ARPA funds that are gonna be available to the city. We probably are going to spend a fair amount of it in parks, I'm hoping. That some serious money is going to be spent there. So I think an advisory committee would be very beneficial to us going forward. So I'm in favor of this motion for that reason. I think.
But again, this advisory committee is narrow scope only to Melissa Park.
Right now,
No bearing
right now,
whatsoever.
it's Melissa Park.
And
for
we
this-
head
for
to
this
another
job.
scope, then we need to make this board by ordinance.
Well, we wanted to make it a board by ordinance. That's another question, but the motion before us right now is to
Just
make
Melissa
it a
Park.
committee, or actually have staff create a resolution that would be clear and defined, to bring back to us, to make this a committee to work on Melissa Park. So that's what the motion is for us. And I think following this, we'll need to do two things. One is address the idea of the sunshine training. Another will be to fully seat the board, or the committee, excuse me, to fill the vacancies in the committee. So we'll have two additional things we'll need to do to make this a reality. Is there any further discussion, not my way in, any further discussion?
Mayor, I just have one quick thing to say.
Come to the podium, please.
Sir. The only thing that should be.
Commissioner Cook, could you state your name?
792 Oak Tree Lane.
Thank
Okay. The only thing that we got a question on Roger's thing, the motion, I go with the motion, don't get me wrong. But I think you ought to take the time thing of December out, because in construction, you can never tell. If something doesn't come in or doesn't happen, what are you gonna do, get rid of the board and then redirect them again after December? I think that should be changed until the completion of the job. That's all I got.
That's a reasonable point. Would you want to amend the motion, or you are already satisfied with it, Commissioner?
Pretty sure it'll be done in October.
I'm gonna take this opportunity to be transparent with you. While it looks like nothing has been done in Melissa Park, with you has been done. The basketball court is really reconstructed, the plans for the park are completed, and could potentially be in the same agenda that we create the Melissa Park committee to advise you on a plan that you can see. So there's all kinds of things in motion on costs and work that already been completed. And really can't be reversed, at least for the CDBG funds, because of the timing. So I just don't want you to think that we're gonna, we can't hold back, is what I'm trying to say. We can move forward.
That's a good point.
That's
That's a good point, and when we follow on to that, if we, Commissioner Ecker, if we ask for this, resolution to be crafted by staff, we're looking at not addressing it again until the next meeting. And then voting, now we could, right after this, 5 minutes from now, we could fill the vacancies, but they still don't have their direction unless, because we're just asking for it to be done, we don't have it done yet.
You see what I mean? See what's,
Yeah,
see how we're doing this?
It's a Pandora's box, I understand.
And the entity itself, I go back to that, I'm sorry, but fundamentally, that's where I am. I'm okay with what Commissioner Eckert said too, but see how the discussion goes?
It's very.
And clearly, there's members of the committee that are hostile and adversarial,
Well, yeah.
potential members or even current members. Which lends me to a cautious yes to Mr. Eckert's motion just the same, because clearly it's adversarial. So I just fundamentally, that's where I am on this, because I sense a need for this well into the future for the city, not a Parks and Recreation Department, not at all. But there's a clear need, but is that need best benefited to this commission and city through the existing staff and public works, or is the commission clearly benefited of that need through an official board by ordinance, or just a temporary committee with an extremely narrow and limited scope? We haven't decided yet.
Well,
On
that's
either
what,
of that.
that's
On
what
either
this,
of that.
but that's what this motion.
I gotta ask about.
Well, you've done it, and I'm okay with just that little piece, but then you're going on to saying, well, we got this, we got that, we can't do that if we're going to narrow the scope to Melissa Park.
Well,
That conversation shouldn't be part of this.
yeah,
For me,
I believe it can, but I understand your caution, and I'm not saying. I don't wanna be out of line at all, but I think we can get there. But I
I'm willing.
think this is really pushing the ball down the road, they're kicking the can down the road, to get the metaphor right. So you had a question, Commissioner.
Scott, on the sunsetting date, does it have to be ironed down to a date, or can it be until the project's completed? Even if it takes more than a year?
No, I think it could be until the project's complete, and I guess you find the project complete, and then it could be. It doesn't have to be a specific date.
Is that right?
I'm good with that, sure.
Well, so my reservation about this motion is that it's simply asking for a resolution that can be brought back to us at the next meeting, rather than giving them any direction tonight.
They've gotta have a meeting to
Right.
introduce their new people anyway.
by consensus, would you want them to begin, maybe the chair of the committee could begin working with staff on properly noticing the next meeting, properly, whatever they need to do to get things in order, to start working on this as soon as possible.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, of course.
The way I interpreted the motion was that we were creating a new committee. The list part committee, which means we will dissolve the current committee. So the resolution coming before you will have 5 blanks for your 25 members.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even think of that way.
That's just the way I was thinking. Or, I mean, if you just want to modify what's there, I could modify the existing committee, but the way you make your motion, it sounded like it was going to be a new committee. Not to say you can't reappoint the same people who are on there. I was anticipating that, but if, I was thinking there would be a new committee coming to you that would be reappointed, 5 members on it, and then that's when they would start working. Because the problem they're having right now, even though they have 3 members appointed, only 2 show up, so they can't meet. And even if they have an advertised meeting in Sunshine, they still can't meet because they're on point. So, if you want them to meet as this committee in preparation of the new committee, you would have to appoint someone to this committee to be dissolved. The next committee, when we do it, so it'd be very short term.
Was that your intention to dissolve this committee and begin anew?
Not really, but I can see where that would occur.
I think it would be cool not to appoint people that have worked hard to get.
I'm saying they can be reappointed. I never thought of it.
I don't care if it's new or old, I think Nancy, Betty's got an opportunity to continue to work.
See this?
I'm not opposed to either of you working on that committee and continue. The only thing I've ever wanted was a clear sense of direction, and that the committee, like other advisory committees in this town, support the commission.
I think the easiest thing to do would be for us to bring back a resolution modifying the current committee. And if you wanted to appoint people to a committee tonight, the same committee, that we're going to modify it tonight, that's fine. You can do that. And then we'll bring it back and modify and narrow it down. Just like we modified it to expand it, we modified it to bring it back to just a list part. But it's the same committee, we're just changing the name and narrowing the scope at the next meeting, we adopt the resolution. But if you wanted to appoint somebody to that committee tonight, you will address it.
So as staff works on the motion or the resolution, in your motion, is that your understanding of what?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
As it still creates the resolution that gives them the job to recommend for the Melissa Park.
it redefines the terms of the current committee.
Yes. That's fine.
Or the focus or whatever that word would be. It redefines it and focuses the current committee. So, is that understood now? Clear as mud to everybody? Clear as mud to y'all? Does it sound like we're moving forward? I think everybody out there wants to move forward. I really do. So I will call the question on this one. Zone 1,
Yes.
Zone 2,
Yes.
Zone 3,
Yes,
Zone 4.
Very tentative and cautious yes, based on my comments about some of the hostility and adversarial relationships exhibited tonight, but it's a cautious yes.
Good, and I vote yes as well. Motion carries. Staff, have at it. All that very clear discussion should be a piece of cake.
Commissioner Cotton, you'll make your motion, I'll bring back another resolution.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Our next,
Mr. Mayor, may I
I guess
get a
our next
motion,
order will
please?
be on the motion to have board members attend ethics training.
Mayor Lane and fellow commissioners, I wish to make a motion to direct city staff to create a resolution requiring that all city advisory boards or committees attend the 4-hour ethics training promoted and produced by the Florida League of Cities
Second.
going forward.
I have a motion by Commissioner Connell, second by Commissioner Eckert, for the city to require board and committee members appointed by this commission to attend the 4-hour ethics training provided by Florida League of Cities within 6 months of their appointment
And that would also include current board members
including current board members,
from the 6 months from the date of adoption.
and moving forward within 6 months of their appointment. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. Zone 1,
Yes.
Zone 2,
Yes.
Zone 3,
Yes.
Zone 4,
Yes.
Zone 5, yes, and motion carries with my apologies to all the current board members. But it's not that bad. It's actually good to know what you're dealing with. It's helpful. I've attended it twice in the last month. This one? Wow.
Because you're not 7'5".
Did I say Zone 5?
Yes.
Mayor votes okay. I'm just counting. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I guess Zone 5 is the city of,
1, 2, 3, 4, 10.
it's the city of Lake County, Zone 5.
So,
It's got the largest population density of all the zones.
appreciate that. So that motion carried. Agreed. And
Are we going to fill the seats?
that will be our next order of business. Do we want to appoint members to the vacancies on this current
From what
board
I understand, we have 3 applications.
for 2 seats? Or do we have, how many applications do we have, and how many empty seats do we have?
You've got 3 applications,
2 seats.
2 seats.
Thank you for that clarification. Do you want to make a motion?
One of the applicants goes, had a previous commitment out of town.
She sent a letter. She sent.
She's been here for the last few meetings waiting for the vote.
That would be,
Um,
what's her name?
Roxanne Gallahan.
Roxanne Galvin. Okay, thank you.
I'm going to say Roxanne, but then I was going to say.
And the second was Charlene Bishop.
The third
This
one
year.
is Mr.
And the third was, okay, so
I would pick 2 and an alternate. I don't know, I'm not sure about that.
okay.
Just,
Well,
well, I see
well,
what the attrition that happens, so the accident would be 500. I think.
typically, I believe an alternate attends all of the meetings and
But doesn't have,
it doesn't have to vote unless,
unless one of the members are missing.
is that what I understand how an alternate operates? Would you be interested in an alternate position? I say that only because you're the third applicant for the 2 seats.
I would be, I would consider that, that's the only option.
Well, it's us, we're still clarifying things, so we need a motion.
I make a motion that we fill the vacancies as the applicants came in with the third position being alternate and the alternate position.
Do I have a motion to fill? We have a
Parks
second.
and Recs Committee.
We have a second.
Can I say something?
We gotta have a second.
What's the motion?
Motion is to,
Fill the Parks and Recs vacancy based on when the applications were put in, with the third one being an alternate position that's an added position to
And what's the order the applicants came?
it's,
Your first,
Charlene Bishop and Roxanne Galvin,
Roxanne.
and then, Christopher Taylor.
Thank you.
Rick Taylor, sorry.
Rick said he had no problem with filling the alternate.
We're not setting a precedent as far as when people turn their application in, that's how you decide that, pick them, rather than maybe picking the person who's most qualified.
I don't think it's a precedent, I think it's just a motion that comes
Okay.
Rick wants to say something.
yeah, thank you for coming forward. And then I believe Nancy wants to.
Rick Taylor, 208 North High Street. Thank you, Commission. I just wanted to, I did fill out an application, I just wanted to ask if you have had an opportunity to read my application. And I would hope that you would consider a candidate based off of their application and the history and not the orders that they applied.
I concur.
I'm good with that.
Well, they all.
That's fair, we just have a
I was
motion.
on
in front of us.
Parks and Rec for 30 years ago.
Yeah, we just have a motion in front of us, and I appreciate the couple of
And
discussions.
I'm ready
Ms.
to.
Weary is, are you chair today?
I am not.
Who is? Well, it doesn't matter.
I am.
I'll recognize Ms. Weary when I speak.
So, I know I spoke with some of you about this year. I don't have a problem with an alternate, I have a problem with the applicant, who I have had legal issues with, including stalking charges. I have been harassed repeatedly. I have asked you not to consider him for these reasons, because I feel it is a danger to me. And I don't know how you want to handle the legalities of that, but they are very serious.
There's never been any stalking charges. It's a lie.
Well, I don't want to break down too much here, especially back and forth, off of Davis, thank you. I did speak with Ms. Weary about this before, and I completely forgot prior to this moment of the meeting. Apologize for that. Are you aware, Commissioner Eckert, are you aware?
No, but I did want, I didn't intend for the recommendation to be based solely on the timeframe in which the applicant put in. All the applicants, all turned in very good recommendations for themselves, for the board, and their background and everything on it. It's just that there's some that's been waiting quite a few months, in which this process has constantly been delayed. That's the only reason I did it that way, was to compensate those people for the time that they've been waiting.
Not quite sure how to proceed, because I understand, Ms. Weary's concerns.
Well, I understand at the meetings, meetings will be here in a secure location. If we need to have one of our Lake County PD's president at the meeting to make sure that she feels safe, I think we might be able to find out from the administrator if we can have that done.
We can only have one officer on duty in keep the station of the meeting to protect themselves and themselves.
So that's
Then we can talk to Brian about hanging somebody overtime to come in.
for an alternate.
I think that's fortunate.
I see it as an opportunity. We're all gonna get along, great time to start.
Amen.
You know, I think there's some things, once you cross that line, when you put my family in danger, you put my family in danger. It's not just about me. And I should feel safe. Every woman in this room should feel safe.
I think every man in this room should feel safe as well.
I do understand the emotional aspect of this to some extent. I do understand it's very personal thing, very difficult though for us to, I would be hesitant to appoint a member of the board to a board that had where there's this problem. I don't know how to resolve that. Any ideas on how to resolve this?
I do.
Okay, Mr. Vice Mayor Collins?
Revisit the resolution again to establish committee, because I need positivity. I need to understand that this committee is gonna be in the right places, and I get the personal relationships, I understand that. And there's significant issues there. I'm not privy to the details of it. It's none of my business to be to. Ms. Weary makes a valid point for her personal safety. Mr. Taylor makes a valid point for his qualifications. So does Ms. Bishop. I know Roxanne.
I'm not gonna recognize
I'm
you.
just gonna withdraw my
I'm not
application.
gonna recognize you right now.
All right, I'm gonna withdraw my application. I don't want to put anyone in fear. I don't want to scare anybody. I was hoping as an opportunity that we can maybe work together and in some of these confrontations. So I'll just withdraw.
Okay.
And you guys can proceed with how you.
I appreciate that. I'm sorry, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
So Mr. Taylor has withdrawn his application. I would assume that would modify your motion to appoint,
two vacancies.
Roxanne Callahan and Charlene Bishop to the two vacancies on the committee. Is that a reasonable thing? Any additional comments before we take a vote?
My only comment is, and this is not on the vote, I'm fine with that, but coming back to the resolution to make this committee finite, Susan apart. This could create a situation where that could be in perpetuity. Okay, and I'm fine with that as well. I just want to understand, once again, when we talk about scope, you know, are we going to have a group that they're dedicated to that part, as long as it's there, they can be responsible and continue to bring it back? I don't have an issue with it, okay? I'm just saying that when you don't have a sunset clause, you're creating an opportunity. That's all.
It is something we're gonna have to make sure we don't let it get out of hand again as a commission.
It did include when the improvement, you know, a couple months after when the improvements are completed. So it does.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is,
when
you can have a
it's-
change order, you can take 6 months to get it.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's why I'm saying that window is open.
But it's when the project is done, a couple months after, to make sure everything's right, is when it expires.
And what I'm saying
So
is,
it's not a perpetuity.
it could be, and I'm okay with this. I'm okay.
It's just a word caution.
If we have a system group that stays on top of a specific part, and make sure that it is always what the city would like it to be, I don't have an issue with that. I just want to recognize that it exists.
Thank you. Chair recognizes the city administrator.
To make it appropriate, timeframe, the CDBG grant that is applied for and received, has to have a closing, a formal closing, and it's have this significant completion of the project. And we don't pay to do that, so that may be a milestone in the CDBG grant was finalized, the committee was dismissed.
Okay. We'll make the resolution that's brought back to us to reflect that. Is that reasonable?
They've got to put the resolution together, or they feel the best way to vote.
Does that sound, it sounds like a
Yeah,
reasonable.
it just dawned on me when I was sitting there thinking, maybe that's not a bad idea.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator. So I'll call the question on the motion before us to appoint, Roxanne Callahan and Charlie Bishop to the vacancies on the Parks and Rec Committee. All in favor?
Parks and Rec or Parks and Playground?
Parks and Rec.
Melissa Park.
As, yes, as will be defined on the next meeting, yes. As will be defined on the next meeting. I don't think I probably should be on there in this motion to appoint them to the vacancies on this committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for volunteering and.
I just real quick, we need to get with the city administrator now, and we could actually plan a meeting, or do we need to wait until the rest?
Do you have a chair?
I'm the chair.
Okay, well then I would recommend that, yes, you and the city administrator have a conversation.
Gotcha.
And figure out how to move forward. Don't make it too like it's like I don't go and talk to the city administrator or any other
That's
commission.
fine, I'll make an appointment with you.
Yeah.
We'll catch up with you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner.
You know, I wish to go on the record of being conciliatory to have a united commission here in regards to this whole entity. But right now, we've got a volunteer entity that's been supported by the city commission through an amended resolution that's so fluid concerning the weight and gravity of what's being discussed here tonight. Variety of levels, right? Once again, I go back to the very beginning. It's the entity itself, not the function, not the people, the entity. We have a quasi-entity, a hybrid, if you will, that was only done really, I think, to to give respect to the committee in which I've done years and years of service in various capacities over 30 years, as Ms. Bishop was indicating. So it's more for 30 years here, right? This commission's job is to decide whether we want the entity to continue officially or not. For the record, this is a hybrid. I voted yes to be a minimal,
Appreciate that.
not to be divisive, and to support a unified commission in this respect, expecting the same then from the advisory committee for Melissa, being a unified team, no matter the conflict, no matter the hostility, just the same, a unified decision. I support decisions of individuals here in this commission that I have disagreed with, and will continue to do so always, because that's my job, right? To make my point, do it in public, not on social media, so I'm on the record and held accountable, right here, right now. That's the only time I can say this kind of stuff to you guys and be legal, right? So I'm saying this stuff to you guys to be legal. This was not the right way to go about this, because there's too much emotion attached to it. And I tried to get the emotion out of it and create the entity first, or not, then move forward. That's the only reason why I'm in here. So that's a particular decision, that I will support 100% what we decide. And we decided, and I support this group.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I'll second that, saying that this is tenuous right now. It's kind of on the precipice, and it just is what it is. I wear some of that. Like I said earlier, allowing this to go on for the last, ever since my first meeting, basically. This has been hanging over our heads, and it's been undecided. I'll wear it. We've had other very pressing things. I don't think it was out of any malice, but the reality is it got pushed down the road, and I wear that. I think we've expressed to you, several of us have expressed to you some of our reservations, and we've felt unsupported. I think I can say it that way. We have felt unsupported at times, and questioned when we're trying to do the best we can. We will continue trying to do the best we can. We always have. I have confidence in the commission, and I'm confident now that we can all move forward together. I believe we can. Thank you. Yes. So after I would like to take a 5-minute recess. Let's make it a 10-minute recess. It is 8:01. Let's restart again at 8. Thank you.
And our emotions. You were exactly right. You were exactly right.
You went for it, I think, got you looked.
I'm just tired of all. I will say that questions, well, they have consequences. And you see some of the. It's okay, but it's a reality.
And I must be too close.
Aaron, you probably too close to Karen. But that's your choice.
I see the the city being with parks and everything. Oh, great.
Troop 590, me, Dennis, Chris Pratt, Charlie Peter.
And when we had,
All that stuff put together.
other civic groups that dealt with the business.
We brought in Rotary because I was the chair.
Yeah, Rotary.
I brought in Rotary because I was president of the Rotary Club. For years and years.
I didn't.
Along with the adults in the group. But then there was a year that we just, you know, sometime in mid-2000, the city made a change. And now they wanted to do it. That's what happened. Once we stopped doing barbecue and grease, I did the grease pole 3 years ago myself.
I know a lot of people are
I did the grease pole. I went over to Alton Junior's place and got a 60 pole, brought it home, shredded it, cured it, cleaned it, sanded it, and put it in myself. And that's what's on this right now. And that's what I have to be advised. I cannot be a friend of Charlotte. Anyway, I support it. I support it in this part. But so Bruno has to show up. I do this advisory board. So I'm happy. I don't like I've never done this. I won't I only know this. The behavior is that's all. She didn't know I could do it. They know that. Nevertheless, we can. We started out early, but it was terrible. It was just terrible between all public records. One day. What up, Dean? How about this? Hey, we're about the same thing. You can't handle this. Hey, I don't want to. It's all innuendo. It's all innuendo. I hope they see it. It's all innuendo.
Well.
Oh. See you later. I think you could, and I think you'd be very good at it. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's all there.
But thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, it is a
How you doing, Scott? Busy day today. We've got some pretty good sized projects going on at the villages in Sumter County. I spent the entire day up there and drove from there to here. Her hip a couple of years ago. Good. Yeah. She is doing well. She is doing well. And yep. Oh yeah. Much as I can, brother. We got into a bunch of striped bass about 2 weeks ago at Lake Monroe. And did some late night, well, it's late night now, but late evening, late afternoon, early evening bass fishing about 3 days ago. Caught a bunch of small ones with nothing. All topwater. No, I use topwater plug. They're all topwater. They're so active right now in the mornings and nights. It's all topwater. So. But the striped bass are on the east end of the lake. Monroe. Crickets, minnows, all day long. All day long.
We're out fishing in this western Marquesas. And there's areas out there that used to be bombing ranges. They may still be bombing ranges from the Naval Air Base. They're at Stock Island. And the place, like the article, my dad's place is on Big Copper, which is like the end of the runway.
I know Copper. Yeah, I know runway too. I know what you're talking about.
The end of the runway. Yeah. And so it's like an air show, like it's pretty much 8 o'clock every morning. But we're out there fishing in western Marquesas. And so I guess this guy was just messing with us, this pilot. He sat there and buzzed over us twice.
Really?
I'll show you. You can kind of see the video.
What kind of plane was it?
F-18.
Really? He was buzzing you with a fighter jet?
Yeah.
He might have
I
been
mean, he
used.
was like 100 or 150 feet above.
You think he would use you for a reference point or something?
He flew twice.
Sir?
And the cool thing was, I think the second time you could see him coming along the water, and he was just, it looked like it was like 50 feet above the water coming out.
Man, that must have been cool.
It was cool.
Man, that must have been cool.
Let's see. You can kind of spit the how loud it was. Let's see.
Sometimes I don't understand and work on things.
See how loud I was? It was so cool. You know, we went to that Sanford Air Show. What up there, Mr. Cookie? You bet I will, sir. Thank you for sharing. We went to the Sanford Air Show. Did it from the boat. And so, you know, out there at that Sanford Airport, it's closer to Osteen, right, than it is to Sanford, really. So we take the boat down to an Osteen area, and we just sat there, and the Ospreys, they'd use us. The Ospreys would use us as the center point. They're right over it, right? And they're tipping their wings at us, waving to us, doing the old beer thing, you know?
That was fun.
Yeah. That's a great thing to watch that air show from the boat. I gotta tell you.
That has been not too subtle minute. Everybody ready?
Mayor, I just wanted to say, I don't know who's responsible for putting the poison in the refrigerator.
On that note, I'll call the meeting back to order and move us to the next item, which is need for grant funding. Mr. City Administrator, would you like to introduce us to this discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Commission. If you recall, we were talking earlier about the water meters, and we had solved that issue, and appreciate the direction. In the same vein, you recall the master plan for the water system was developed and set by the commission about 2 months ago, drafting it longer. And in it, there are a series of improvements that they're recommending happening. The first group in a period of 10 years, and another group and a third group. The first group of 10 years, the total projects in today's dollars about $8.4 million. With the information that we've received on potential generosity of the state with respect to these projects that have forgivable loans associated with them, we'd like the direction to attempt to secure grants that are forgivable to a certain extent, obviously the higher the better, and proceed with their 8.4 is not one project, it's a series of projects. And start the process of picking up the list of that first group of projects to the extent we're able to get funding. So that's the direction we're really seeking. And if you notice the analysis that I've done there, if it works out, if we get a 20-year note, 2% interest, and 40% available, we could probably, I'm saying, when we get it, the whole thing and pay back to our raising rates with our revenue from the 300 growth years, and plus because it would be 3% per year increase, we've got development that's going to add the customers along, should be able to pay the whole thing off of it, have the rate rates. And that's speculative, but I want you to know it's not something we have to brace ourselves for, but I think it could come very positive for the city. But we like the direction to go ahead and start the process of attempting to secure the $8 million forgivable loan, partially forgivable loan.
I'll make a motion to approve the research for grant funding as described by the city administrator.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Gasso, a second by Commissioner Rutledge for staff to pursue the grant funding. Mr. Administrator, was that going to entail hiring somebody?
I should have mentioned that, Mayor, I'm sorry. The example I gave you before with the meters, the Florida Rural Water Association has a retired engineer in Tallahassee who does this, and we're assuming to be able to work with us on a project. But he charges $9,000 for the entire application, the whole process. And that's an unbelievably low number for anybody to write grants and go through the process. And that's what I'd like to, I intend to get a hold of him for both the meter grant and for this grant too, for grants, whatever we have to do. So to answer your question, no, we wouldn't be looking to hire anybody, except that single person for that single project.
So we instead of hiring the contracting, the grant writer,
Rural Florida.
rural water.
Rural water, I can't say that, use, that group. And so we've got a lot of the preliminary, we've got agreements with them. But I'm gonna be able to ensure you're on board when we start this thing, so I don't get it.
Okay, so we have a motion for staff to pursue that, and a second, any discussion?
Discussion.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. So whenever I look at instances like this in my private life and my business life and now in this political life, and I see the words goals and assumptions and assuming, that triggers some things in my world, right? So are you planning on doing studies for if you were to assume a 50% forgiveness? What if it was a 30% forgiveness, 25% forgiveness, and do some math studies there for me to be a little more comfortable and forecasting what this 320 grand payment might be. If your goal is to obtain 8.2 million, which is aggressive, and that would be covered, according to my notes and math, a lot of work that would be, a lot of our CIP would be fulfilled through this. And I don't know enough about this yet. And I see that all applications must be approved by the commission prior to submission. I'd like to know a little bit more about the assumption of a 50% forgiveness for the meter loan and the goal of 8.2 million and what affects that.
Okay, first of all, the goal was set by the master plan, the dollars in the master plan for the projects in the first 10 years.
Okay.
That's where we started. We are, the funding, we're in a very good position right now with respect to the state. The state has a tremendous amount of funds for all kinds of stuff, thanks to the federal government. I don't know if you follow the budget, but their budget increased by a huge amount. They're literally almost flush with cash. And they're
Something like 3 billion unappointed in the budget.
They're solving a lot of problems. And continue to get on different movement. And I just gave the illustration that if I was backing into the number of what we expected to receive in 300 meters, corrected that, started receiving the revenue, and started back into what it would take to keep it without having to raise rates. And that is 40% forgiveness, 2%.
I see. That was your methodology approach. Is what would result in no rate increase.
Correct.
Correct. So what we as a politician and commissioner would like to know what the redress would be if it does create a rate increase. See, that's the other side of my point.
That's a distinct possibility. And then we reduce the principal. If the rate is higher, reduce the principal. We don't get 40%, we get 20%, and reduce the principal, and we don't do as many profits. Or if you would like, there's, I don't know when we last done a rate study on water, but it's not very recent, I know that. That is a possibility to see what our rate should actually be for the study of the system we have. But I'm not suggesting that's necessary right now. I'd like to work with somebody else.
Indeed.
Smaller systems have, I think I shared with you, email from former city manager who was complaining about the water rates being so high. And it's true that when you have a large system, this person is in charge of a large system, you have a great deal of customers to spread the overhead. In a small system, we have to give the same thing in terms of the overhead. We have very few customers, relatively speaking. So it is more expensive for a small system, no question. But that doesn't mean we have to raise rates. We can scale back our ambitious, let's do all 8 million now. We may be willing to 4 million, 3 million, 2 million. This is a very grant situation.
I'll say the comment on that train of thought. Right now, and we've said it, several of us have said it, right now money's cheap. We're in the 2% ballpark. That's they're paying us to take it.
Well, I think you said
inflation,
inflation pays for that.
Yeah. So I feel like it's very reasonable, and Chairman alone, it's very reasonable to pursue this as aggressively as we can right now, because the Fed has been saying they want to raise rates 6 more times this year. It's never going to get cheaper in the immediate future. It ain't going to get cheaper to get money. So I think we need to be as aggressive and as quick as we can to get what we can. The water master plan that decommissioned got, thank goodness we started that process however many months ago that that got started, maybe years ago. It takes a long time to pull this stuff together. We got that down, it's perfect timing. So kudos to previous commissions and administrations and whatever. We've got the right stuff to work with. So I'm excited about moving forward with this. Another reason I'm excited about it is that if we can do, lost my train here. One of them is the 8.2 that we're talking about pursuing here. This was a 10-year plan. We're gonna get started on it and maybe finish it within a couple of years. I will be paying for it for 20, but it really moves forward. That 10-year plan really gets us far ahead of the game in a very rapid, old fashioned, which I'm excited about.
This is something I've been advocating for several years, and now it's kind of falling around that.
It is, and it's many good plans coming together. For previous.
I just wanted to bring up the caution of the commission over the assumption of the 50% forgiveness.
Yeah.
But either way, we're still in good shape though, unless we miss the mark by 25%, which I don't anticipate that to do. Thank you.
Any further?
I'm glad that we're getting it started and getting the water quality resolved.
Amen.
As expedited as possible.
This is 10 years of work in 1 year.
Did he say 9,000 for the grant writer?
Sorry?
$9,000 for the grant writer, is that what you said? So does he,
That's what he charged another city. Just use that.
will he get paid only if we get the grant, or that's just, he gets paid to do it? It's a week.
Reasonable question.
Is any of this money, infrastructure money that's been approved by the United States government?
That's actually a good question. It was going to be my next comment. And that is that another reason I'm excited about this is that this brings all of this spending into the water utility fund and frees up completely. If it works out this way, it's, it's not a foregone conclusion, as we were admonished to realize. But if it works out this way, it frees up all of those ARPA funds, the 1.2 million, some of which we're already chipping away at. But it frees all that up for the commission to spend in other ways, for the city to use in other ways. To me, that is very exciting. We've got a bunch of things in this city. I'm sure all of us can spend that within 6 months if we try hard enough. But it gives us opportunities to really do some very wonderful things here in the city. I'm very excited by that. And it puts the expense where the expense really belongs, is in the water utility fund. The people that, paying their meter bills should be paying for all those expenses. It makes perfect sense. Logically, it's the way it's designed to work. So this is making it work. We were looking at pulling money out of those ARPA funds and just band-aiding the city outside of the fund, which really isn't inappropriate, but sad. We're going to have to pull money and do it that way. So this is exciting to me. I hope it's exciting to all. Mr. Everett.
In answer for the question on the cost of the grant writer, the reason why they charge so much is because they follow all the way through. And if there's things that need to be followed up on, they also do that follow-up to make sure it gets through the system. So they charge a lot to make sure all that is done.
And it is a lot of stuff. Any other discussion on the motion for staff to move forward with the grant writing? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Hallelujah. So that brings us to the use of ARPA funds. Item D. Mr. Administrator.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, as we just mentioned, the city will by next July have $1.4 million in grant received from the federal government under the American Rescue Plan. In our initial discussions, we recall, was dedicated the money to the water improvements that were necessary. But I think the mayor discuss it in great detail. We felt perhaps it was better use for the money, since we're going to be doing the grants and the period is so lucrative right now, is to use the money on things that are highly visible. A lot of improvements are necessary, but unless you're living on that street and see the construction, you won't even know it's done afterward, forget it's done. And we will just spend $1.4 million and those are what. So we like to have things that are much more visible in the city, improvements that people can see and enjoy. So you note that we have 1.4 million. I've given you some of the preliminary deductions that we've already earmarked for 250,000 originally. Virginia is going to cost 500,000 because the districts are so high. The city is near the able to get another 250,000 apartment state owned for that project. So we only have to earmark 250 for Virginia. I have tentatively earmarked 100,000 for Melissa, which is in addition to the 62 and the 25. So we will have, and again, let me be cautious, this is such a tender. When I say Melissa, and earmarking, I'm not suggesting what we spent. Obviously, it can be spent on things you approve, but I just said, this is our preliminary budget we're working toward. So that's that number. There's 30,000 for High Street, Vermont, which has been in the works for a number of, probably 9 months now. And you notice I said these $1.020 million. Now, when I wrote that, we had not received a letter from the states when we were awarded $180,000 grant at City Hall. That grant is a matching grant. We pledged $60,000 to it, so we'll have to match the 60 to 180. I was not as optimistic as I should have been. We really didn't think we would get it, but we did. So now we'll have to allocate 60 of that ARPA funds to match the 180, which obviously we will spend. It goes on windows and roof for the City Hall.
So, can I interrupt you for a second? I wanted to say kudos to the previous commission and mayor for pursuing that. That grant money that the legislature just approved, it's going to be a while coming through, but it would have never come through without the work that they did. And that's a tremendous move. 250,000, is that right?
No, it's 180,000 plus the 60 we get for 250. So
Yeah, 250 total. This building needs it bad. And it's gonna be great to get that done. I appreciate the work that's going for us. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I wanted to send out my kudos to previous commissions.
I'm just saying 180 and 60 is not 250.
240.
It's close.
I knew that was wrong, but I couldn't.
It's government.
I can't count 4 here.
I'm not. Okay. Now it gives you the enviable job of trying to figure out how we best spend $960,000. And I think we have 4 years to come up with an idea what to do with it. And there are numerous things I'm sure we want to consider. It is now time for you, not tonight, to put your thinking caps on and how best you think we can spend $960,000. And you look at this thing, you can't lower taxes, you can't put it reserve. There are some limitations that I don't think are considered, but I know some cities, ooh, great, let's put up a reserve. You can't lower taxes. You can't stop a tax increase. You have one to work.
I would, for some of that money, I would like to see a proposal or something worked up on finishing the museum park out back here, so that building can be completed and it can have stuff put in it and park like walk through things around it and buy it, so.
See the best.
Enhance that.
I'm sorry, Roger, but I didn't know.
And, including, maybe, because there was a proposal for a parking area to be put over on this side with a connecting road between. Look into something, I mean, that's on, I believe, on the master plan. So if we could do that to help enhance city hall.
Another suggestion received today is perhaps, the number wasn't, a modest number, to give the museums sort of building professional exhibits, categories, all that stuff. Yeah, there's one is the, very nice museum, they could use some funding to professionalize it. I don't know how to say it, I'm not trying to be, but they do a great job. Use it.
Now, they've done, I'll throw in on that a little bit, that the museum has done a good job with the resources they've had, but they've had virtually no resources. And we need to, I've been looking at stuff, we definitely need to spend some money on preserving some of those things that we do have, or time will eat them away. So I think we need to get some numbers put together.
That would be a lot of sum, Roger's idea, to do another lot of sum, between two, and probably not gonna spend more than 20. So,
It's just hard.
it's 960, so we got some work on it.
Can staff create a list for us? Can staff create a wish list for us? Sure. That we can review?
Commissioner, echo on that?
Certainly.
I'm going to follow up on that. We need to establish something up here for them and the public both and a wish list. So if they come out here and we're talking about, months. Right? Plus, we need to get the public involved with this. We have an opportunity to spend $1 million on visible and cool improvements here in the city of Lake County. I'd like to see something on the website. I'd like to see a lot of information gathering first before we start deciding where we're going to spend it. You know, through
I'd like to
the,
spend some money on the website with it, so we can actually use it that way.
through the website or a MailChimp or an online, Toggle survey, CAD survey, whatever, of a boatload of product. Or if the citizens wish, and that's what I would encourage, this is what I see with that money. Here are my 10 things, here are my 5 things, and the same thing for us, here are our 10 things, same thing for you guys. Even the city attorney, since he's been around here enough to know there's some needs out here, perhaps. I mean, maybe even the city attorney weighs in, all the staff weighs in, all the employees, hey, let's get on that, let's get some information, not just city staff, Commissioner.
Not just us, yeah.
Not just us, but let's spend, I mean, we don't have a timeline on this, right?
Yeah, we do that, you do, but not a strong, it's not close.
4 years, and I joked earlier, I think any one of us could spend it.
Oh, you said 4 years, I didn't pick that up. So, my gosh, we have time to do a 90-day information period and do another 30 to 60 days to wind it down. These are the primary things that we're talking about, and then decide. And making some people happy and upsetting others, that's just the nature of that information gathering. When you have so much input, you're not going to please everybody. But we're going to please a lot, right? And so hopefully, that'd be my recommendation. There's a way for you guys to do it all, though. Yeah. I'll email my stuff, and so will these guys up here, I bet you. But you'd have to organize the data from the public and present it to us in a format that is doable, right? So am I asking too much?
No, we've discussed this in numerous
Cool.
times, and every time we discuss it, we being, we come to so many things we can think about, we almost stop thinking.
I wrote 25 down, about 20 minutes here.
Yeah. So, no, we'd be happy to look at the wish list, and we're happy to solicit wish list ideas from the citizens as well.
I had a very modest wish list in my head until these funds got freed up by this potential on the.
Oh, I'm sure this was.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well. And I think creating a little bit of structure, creating opportunity for input from various sources, I think is fantastic.
Otherwise, it'll take us a year to decide on this.
Some things I'd like to work quicker on. We have talked in the past about the remodeling of the shuffleboard court to include the bathrooms. I think that spending some money immediately
Cook Street.
on the drawings, so we can get a budget number, so we can understand it. We've also talked about band shell at the park. I would like to look at options for that as well. So some things that need some more planning before we can decide what the number is, probably should happen faster. So, oh, okay. Sorry.
No, that's great.
That's just a straight line sticking away.
Yeah, we are a very modest city, that's the way I like to say it. We are, we're 3,000 people, almost entirely residential in our tax base. Makes us a very, very modest city. I've been attending some meetings of mayors in Tallahassee and here locally, and looking at their numbers, we're a very modest city. And this gives us an opportunity to do some things that we otherwise never would have. Somebody mentioned earlier that we've just let our parks languish and whatnot. Well, that's in large part because we are a very modest city. We don't have much money to throw at things. And municipal level things take chunks of money that are hard to raise. It's a boon for us, and the excitement is well deserved, if you will. So enjoy it while it lasts. Like I said, we'll probably have it all earmarked by the end of the week in our own minds.
Well, I for one is gonna send staff about 20 patents. You know, I think 20 would be a large, and I predict several of them will be common, it's the 5 of us. And then some one-offs, of course, and we have some common, perhaps a couple of commonalities too, so.
And I would like to have I spoke earlier with the city administrator about this. You always see the thermometer fundraising things where the money's building until they finally get what they're looking for. I think maybe we should do a reverse thermometer on this. And we got this money, and here's a list of all the things that we're spending on this as it comes down. And we'll be able to celebrate all of those things.
We can do it virtual, just put it up on the new AV system here in a while.
And on the website.
And the website.
So thank you.
Good stuff.
And we'll move forward on that. Item E.
Item E is very similar to item E. We have the opportunity, we expect to have the opportunity to apply for CDBG grant funds again for 22-23. These are grants that are given by HUD through the state, and we apply through the county for those funds. They're for low and moderate income neighborhoods, capital improvements programs. This year, we dedicated the 62,000 we received to Melissa Clark for the river. In past years, I understand we have used those funds to supplement our own for rebuilding roads. Lake Pearl is one example. That was the $120,000 project, 50,000 came to CDBG with some funds. So there's been some precedent for roads, but they are very expensive. They eat up whatever we got very quickly. But there are a lot of things that you may want to think about. I don't have a time frame on how soon we need to have ideas, but I think we're really ahead of the curve and being early on this one. I'd rather have you thinking how you like to do it early than later. So that's just another fun job.
Do you have a map that shows us the areas in the city that the money can be spent or not spent?
No, I don't.
Can it be created relatively easily?
The CBG or the block, there are block counts, demographic from the census, but I don't think they were beyond as small as our city. I tried to look for them in the past, I couldn't find them.
My understanding in the past that this money can't be used in more affluent sections of the city, if that's the intent.
Yeah.
And so not knowing where all of the places are.
One thing I'll tell you, and this is just me claiming, that these grants they're very laborious in terms of what you have to do to get them. The paperwork afterward is equally laborious. Every month you got to report what you did, didn't do, why not. The administrative costs of this huge. Anyway, so yeah.
Are you suggesting then that we forgive the application?
Pardon?
Are you suggesting that we forgive it? Would we just,
I'm just going to tell you how hard I'm going to have to work for it.
Well, that's what you get paid the big bucks for too, just, as you alluded to a few minutes ago.
Well, it's just like to do things as quick as we can. This thing doesn't allow you to do it quick.
I think you're missing the words and I think that too. I agree.
My recollection in previous time on the commission is that we were simply brought, staff, we were brought
Just
projects.
send it on.
What do y'all think? And generally they were approved. So I think
We'll have a wish list.
without any other input, we just need to direct staff to just put together what they want.
Well,
Any other ideas?
Myself, I'm a huge fan of spending it on parks because they get neglected. Plus, every time we resurface the road or pave the road, and we haven't taken care of the infrastructure the way it needs to be, because, I'm glad we're tapping water. The stormwater's still out there, sanitary sewer's gonna kick us in the teeth someday, so every road we pave and stuff like that, we create something that needs to be tore up later on. So, I would prefer to put it into something that knows going to be permanent, not get built back up.
Is there anything that permanent?
Like a park.
At least parks are like that.
An excellent point, we spend a lot of time talking about water recently. But stormwater is equally used something. We have an assessment for it that determines very little income, and the needs for that are almost as good as large water system. And the stormwater would be the so it's, that's something we could spend a lot of money on. But anyway, so we'll do a wish list for both of those.
And maybe stormwater would be a good place to.
The stormwater, well, the Arctic ones, the sewage ones, stormwater may be one of those that we can work on. Ready to move on?
I believe so. Item
F.
F.
Item F is an interesting one. I put on your this evening, this particular proposal I received this afternoon from a company that I had a presentation from. Let me back up a little bit. Our website software is very difficult to use. It was very inexpensive to start with, so we really haven't been able to get a big advantage out of being able to change it rapidly, reorganize it rapidly if we want to, et cetera, et cetera. So we're looking at other software for other website developments, and they're literally a ton of them. And this particular company is working. Unfortunately, I did check with one of their clients, and it was not a great recommendation. So I'm going to give you this as an illustration of what we're trying to do, not a recommendation. So we'll have to go out and defer to our company to, if we want the goal of trying to make our website more responsive to our needs. And we certainly want to do that, but I'm afraid that's not what we're going to do. Am I still on the roll?
We're still on software. Does anybody want to weigh in? I know I do. Does anybody else want to weigh in on software, website software, or website needs?
Yes, I would. So if I'm understanding this correctly, there's no monthly fee, and they will continue to put the updates on our website monthly?
Yes, but the difficulty with the recommendation that I received from another city that was told by this company that, they're loved by the city. And, they're not really loved by the city. The difficulty was, they said, wonderfully nice gentlemen that we listened to, the staff ended up doing 75% of the work instead of the company. So it wasn't a great recommendation. With a very small staff, we don't need to have that kind of recommendation. I like them to say, they do 100% of the work instead of us. So this is just kind of information on one company and one company's approach to it, one company's costs, et cetera. But we're going to have to go out and keep pushing for somebody else. And we haven't really done a lot of that. If you've seen other cities and their websites or even their companies, in the private sector, and you think, wow, that's really a neat website. We'll call them and find out who their software manufacturer is. So if you were still have the same opportunity. And we really haven't had time to do that. I just wanted to do the, I thought this may be the winner, it turns out it's not. So that's all.
I will say that Mayor Raisler, I've spoken with her about this in the past, not recently, but I know she put in untold hours putting together this website, as it stands now, with this cumbersome software. We want to build on that great head start that she gave us and move forward, but we see the need for better software going forward.
She used WordPress, WordPress is limited to consumer-based websites, not really commercial public service, business-based websites.
And I believe
WordPress has the ability to do that, but it's web hosting and all that.
as a $4 million corporation up here, if you will, or company or government, with a $4 million budget to spend, $5,000 to $10,000 on our main communication tool is minuscule. I think it's money we should have spent a long time ago perhaps, but now we can, and I think we should. So I appreciate staff doing some research on that, coming back to us with future options. That would be the way I'd like to leave it.
Me too.
And also, I brought this up several times before, but I'd like to revisit it. The possibility of having, it looks like this company does this, where they update the website and possibly social media, if I'm looking at this correctly. And I don't know how y'all feel about social media, but I know there's from what I'm hearing from constituents, they want more communication. And this is one more tick box we can hit. People are on social media. And it doesn't have to be, common and able, but it could be informational where we're saying the same information that we're saying on the website, when they update the website, where there's blow line notice, they would go on to our Facebook or Twitter, whatever it is that we want to have, and they would put the same exact verbiage. I don't know how, if that is something that we'd like to explore in the book or free bids, but it's something that I would like to see. I think a lot of folks are on social media and would appreciate that.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that for this commission and future commissions as well too. Obviously, I'm not on social media a lot, but I recognize it's bad. I'm a reluctant user. And, but for future commissions, I'm a dinosaur, with that. And I fully recognize that, even though it's 20-year journey, there's a limit on the platform. And, but so going forward, I would like to be able to have some kind of positive, presence on the website, or I'm sort of looking to fix the website. I think I'd be more comfortable.
And I remove myself as one individual, I think would be, I'm not speaking for all of you, but speaking for me, I think I'd like to see the entirety of the city represented, and not just one commissioner posting or one commissioner, what have you, so. It's something
That's an interesting point. We could have individual pages that there's a lot of things we could do. I agree. And I agree that we need to, take advantage of these platforms. I'm a belligerent non-user of social media, but I don't believe that the city needs to be. That's my decision personally. I think the city needs to use these other options that are available to get information out.
And there's
We need to communicate with our citizens.
There's always the ever-present danger of being accused of sunshine violation too, with multiple pages on the website from 4 commissioners, and the commissioner was on 5. And, and nevertheless, the potential, that's the primary reason really I stay on that. Secondary reason is the visual, I can't stand. And so, the primary reason I'm just scared to death that you get to some kind of violation.
Risk and benefit.
By somebody else said, right, so it's predominantly the most reasons I'm on with it.
Well, I would defer to the wisdom of those of you who know what the hell you're talking about.
Well, one of the admonitions from our city attorney last meeting about ADA requirements for this, I mean, it gets complicated.
Yeah, I looked at that post and did the same thing about ADA compliance on the website. But, We need to do it anyway, but for sure, if we're gonna expand social media, the city looked into, we worked on, but never adopted a social media policy. I would suggest that we do that, most cities have this. And it's not only just the sunshine law is obviously a concern, but one of the bigger concerns is the public records law. You know, to make sure that we're capturing that data and preserving it. So, but I would just, comment that if we're going to expand social media, which I think would be a good thing, with the social media policies would be something I recommend that we relook into again.
Well, as staff is doing their research and looking at different companies, they can take those considerations forward.
Yeah,
We need to ask those questions.
We were opposed to the policy too. We were opposed to the policy. We just couldn't get
The
it.
cities put out, they have about 10 foreign policies, and I kind of pulled up the ones I like. I worked with previous Mayor Daisy on that, and we just never got finalized. And but it's close to being ready. So if we're we really should look at that again, and maybe a company that can help us with the website may be able to help us write our social media policy too. But there were a lot of forums out there.
Both should inform the other as we go forward, make sure that we don't cut ourselves off the knees with one hand, not talking to the other, however that works. Any additional comments on software? No? Okay, great. Thank you for getting us this far and look forward to that moving forward. Last item is item G, well, not the last item number 5 is item G. No, it's not actually, we moved one other. So, anyway, item G, investigative report, Mr. City Administrator.
The investigative report, we followed on our last agenda, and I think some of you wanted to discuss it or maybe talk about it in greater detail. Our purpose in producing it was to last summer, there were certain allegations made that we took it upon ourselves to investigate. The report says that we did not find anything that was in any way improper or other than perhaps some decisions and purchases that simply we would have made that is matter of selection and choice. But we found nothing that reflected poorly on anybody in terms of ethics or anything else. No products or issues or what else? No crime. So anyway, so this is your time if you want to talk about it. Donna did most of the work, actually she did all the work, and wrote the report, so she's available for questions. And if you don't have one, we got one more that the charter.
Yes, that's why I pulled back on that. But, yeah, this was brought to us at the last meeting, almost last minute though, as far as us getting a chance to read it. I asked that it be brought forward again to this meeting. We have actually been presented this at the last meeting. We're having it again now, because I didn't want it to be, these are controversial things. And one of the things that I don't want to do is have any appearance that we're just sweeping this under the rug. Because that's not what we're doing. We've done, I believe, a very good faith effort to address all of these concerns. And I want to give opportunity for the commission and for the public to see this 2 meetings in a row. This report has been made available. So I'll open up the floor to any discussion from commissioners if you have any.
Well, I like the actions taken and the recommendations that they made.
Under page 4, which is the subsection TD Bank credit cards title, staff recommendations for further action. Item number 2, that the city records are kept in paper form, scanned and from a PDF. The comment revolves around this sentence: it may be worth researching other methods of record keeping and digitizing. I had shared with the city administrator earlier, meeting months ago, was this starting to Verizon, and there's an expense management system software that with company credit card, you're aware of this, I'm sure. When you use a company credit card, I have one, it automatically generates a flag to the accounting department, automatically generates a need to file an expense report, already records the expense to the account number, which I'm required to put in. And then it's required then that expense report be filed within 28 days, or I'm charged back the entire amount. No questions asked. I mean, I'm just charged back. This is your knowledge policy for having the privilege of using your card. The expense management system is beautiful, because not only that, it downloads into your expense form for you, and it'll create your own expense form. It'll code it as well as that. You can get them to death. That was one thing I would recommend that we do to track those credit card charges, is that expense management system solely based on commercial credit cards. And first, I didn't get a chance to say how much I appreciate all the time and effort that you guys have put into this. I know it's been significant. And I wish to credit Ms. Bishop for bringing all this to our attention months and months ago. And this is the result of that. I am surprised. I'm going to the cell phone usage now. Page 6, but my comments are on page 7. And I mean, no disrespect to the city employees, which I'm getting ready to talk about. I would thoroughly recommend doing away with city-issued phones.
I love that.
And offer a phone allowance to the individual to use their personal phone. That's a common practice in industry. It's a common practice, I think, in some governments that I've talked to about some of this stuff already. The expense management system most certainly is used by other governments. And if you have a very large city, there are some department heads that are part of their employment package and perks to get a company paid phone, right? That's really on the wayside.
It really has kind of gone away.
It has gone away. I mean,
I'm eligible, nobody wants to carry too.
I'm eligible for a company paid phone. You know, and so I would recommend that we just do away with city phones completely. And you guys come up with a cell phone allowance. Allowances are fairly common at about $80 to $100 a month, depending on the use. $50 to $60 a month, depending on the employee.
The only thing that pops into my mind is I believe we have a police cell phone that's carried by the duty officer, something to that effect. So that same number is on duty all the time. I think that might be the exception to we might still need to maintain that for public works.
Yeah, you'd have to maintain one or two, true,
Yeah.
but citywide, I don't think.
I'm not disagreeing.
I get you. My last comment, and I'm done with this is on page 10, under the record retention subheading, staff recommendations for further action. That first sentence, especially for record retentions, the new filing system is working well, but it is still highly subject to human error. Your jobs would be much easier for record requests if we addressed this human error issue. It would take the enormous amount of time that you've had to do to put these records together, either manually or both, actually, with outside influence, outside information saying, hey, here's the email I sent. I'm sorry you can't find it. I've got it. That kind of, that's embarrassing. And it's embarrassing for us as a commission. It's embarrassing for us as you as staff, because you guys' heart and minds are in the right place. You want to be as transparent as you can. We all do it here. And because it doesn't feel good to try to do otherwise. So why that might be costly as a commissioner, I'm going to say, well, let's figure out what it's going to cost, because we need this forever. And it's defensible for us then. It defends these commissioners, it defends our city staff, and then it gives an opportunity then for the public in which to weigh in accordingly and get what they get at that point, which we want to give as much as we can that we're able to. So I would really want to see us proceed with these custody and care control issues. Policies that you've created, staff. But that record retention thing, to me, that's critical.
I agree. One thing that came to mind in both of your last two comments is that with cell phones and with record retention in general, and we've discussed this before, it's the nature of the information that creates the public record, not the device on which it is
Indeed.
transmitted. So we do need to have a well-educated staff from top to bottom as to what, and commission and everybody else needs to be well-educated as to what creates a public record, what is a public record, and then how that needs to be treated going forward. So even if we give people an allowance for a cell phone that isn't a city phone, that doesn't mean that can't be used to create public records. They'll have to be dealt with. But we can educate the staff on that. It's just something I wanted to throw in on that. Because I can take my cell phone, and any of us can. And
I could create a public record right now.
yeah. So this, we go to ethics training on that, but we don't
Well, again, that's a
necessarily
really
fully
staff.
understand it, and I know the staff down the line doesn't necessarily fully understand it. That word caution on is all, and mostly the staff, that if we do give people cell phone allowances now instead of cell phones, that we make sure that they still understand that they're responsible for public records wherever they're created.
And it was my understanding that the cell phones were no longer taxable to eliminate that issue. Possible.
This is important.
That's one of the.
If I-
That was a recommendation.
It was a
Hasn't been done yet.
Gotcha.
So the city phones right now are just unlocked. I mean, they're attached to the carrier, but they're unlocked, unlocked for international calls, unlocked, just general random use. Yeah, that's, yeah, we got, yeah.
How many cell phones does the city have?
We have 4. We had a current, and a whole bunch. How many was kind of listed on that, but we only had 4 myself. The first director, chief of police, and duty phone.
Well, Brandon doesn't have
Oh, we did? That's right, yeah.
it.
So we're down 3.
So we're making progress already.
How many phones did we have at one time that cost $20,000 a year?
Every public works employee had one.
And we had.
Unlimited. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. The city administrator and the deputy clerk had one, the duty phone.
And the reality is, in some ways, is that there's pros and cons to everything.
Watches too.
Yeah.
There are pros and cons to everything. Obviously, we bumped up against the cons real hard here. The pros are, and it's great, if you've got staff running around the city, it's often nice to be able to contact any of them at any moment. There's pros to it, too, and I get why that got out of hand, in a positive intent, but, we bumped up against the other side, and we're trying to get back in line. I think we are, and I appreciate staff's work on that, very much.
On page 5, in the staff recommendation, Mr. Willis, Mr. Allow Department has discretion to pay employee for time off work. I wish I was one of those, was, no, bring me back to why we did that to begin with, just review that again.
We had a complaint from an employee that a department head was allowing this, the department head said no, but since we don't know if it's true or not, we just decided to put it in here. We would recommend not changing anything, the policy currently does
Okay.
not allow that, so we'd rather
Good, I'm
not
not,
change it.
I'm not a big fan of paying people for not working.
Yeah.
Copy that. On page 8, when we talked about the camera systems, and all over into 9, it says viewing a cohesive video is not feasible. Why is that? And I would love to have weight from the police department, because I really think cameras are one of the best tools, for, anti-theft and this kind of thing. So I'd love to have a sense of how important, the police department feels cameras and stuff are, and what we would need to do, to protect our city watch, whether it's, whatever. It's just a thought.
You want to kind of educate us on the issues we have with cameras, or?
Sure. So a lot of the cameras that were installed in the wells and in the park, very, very nice and
Blake Park. probably.
yes, Blake Park. But we don't have the internet, the storage, anything to relay that message here at a good speed, in a good way.
So the cameras were faster than the equipment that could read it, and it's.
So you can either upgrade all your other equipment so that we can view the cameras, or you can change
So
the
we
cameras.
bought a new Ferrari, it's got a great engine, transmission, it's got a tire.
Just, yeah, exactly.
We got a road
Do you
that's 3 feet wide.
remember, do you remember, Commissioner Basso, how that was presented to us? Or was it presented? I remember speaking clearly about having cameras at the playground at Lake Park because we were so concerned with the playground equipment being destroyed. And so cameras were a part of that playground expenditure, I thought, in the beginning. And so this is curious in that the infrastructure for the cameras are not purchased at the same time, and that we didn't recognize that our existing electronics were
Yes,
insufficient.
I guess what I'd really like is feedback from police department and staff, and how important are cameras on all of our, public facilities? And if they are important, what's the cap?
And if they're not working, where's the breakdown, what would it take to get them working?
Exactly.
It's a multifaceted question because, again, we've got cameras that are much better than their recording equipment, so we have max storage. We also have some department heads selected locations for their own operations, there's really no coordination.
Some of it's excessive.
Well, some of those cameras should have onboard memory that's batched and then uploaded to a cloud server. That's how my home security system works, and so I don't have to worry about the data.
But again, some of them, we probably have more than we really need in some locations. We can cut down on, or relocate, since we already have other locations that don't have. But the best part is we need to have the ability to record, so if something happens, we go back, save it.
That's the whole point of going timestamp, and that's why I'm saying the home systems are embedded with that onboard memory, and then you set your settings up every time you want to upload it to the cloud, so you have permanent recall of your tapes in a month, 2 months, whatever settings the user sets. Then you go to that cloud server and pull out anything you need based on that date.
And we recall some time ago, we were attempting to, we had independent systems, running independent systems, we had city hall, workers, police, and we tried to set them all together. I think we have them all together now, except for the bus system.
Yeah, we can see them all, yeah.
We can see them all. It's a matter, we just had 2 different cameras every hands.
They weren't all installed by our security provider, some were installed by an independent person.
Exactly. You said it best a moment ago, not a cohesive approach across the board to create a standard for the city.
So y'all working towards that, I mean, you have it in your mind, you're working towards.
We can
That's
see
the
them all
mission,
now,
the
so
local
that's
system.
step one, now we have to try to get them all working well, and then maybe get them all in the same system, so we can see all of them in the same place.
Mr. Bassett, you were working through some,
That was it.
Okay.
Yeah, we covered it.
Dr. Rose, do you want to address anything on these reports?
Just one question. On the retreat credit cards, it says that, there's one card and prior meetings, the individual must give a brief verbal explanation of purchases. What could we maybe do written on that, or what is the reason of your?
They bring back a receipt
Okay.
that's written, so like, chief will come to me and say, I need stamps. So he takes it to the post office, it stamps, brings the receipt back, and then that goes scanned into the record with the invoice.
So what happens if he gets like stamps and gas or something, for example, then what would the
That
process?
has not happened since we switched to the new, system. If someone were to send the card unauthorized, soon then we follow the personnel policy
Okay.
with,
And,
poor
and,
performance.
and wouldn't that expense management system capture that dual charge then, right? If there was an expense management system, wouldn't that system capture that charge?
Yes.
You'd be better at knowledge on that.
Yeah, I like the sounds of that.
And I think there's
That's what we use
the
across the board.
capability to take a photo right there in that moment when it's swiped. It'll prompt you to take a photo of the receipt.
Yeah.
And upload it to, so if you can download a CNC file. and-
Yes.
Is staff familiar with this system?
Vaguely, but a little more into it.
Would you check your emails
I
for
don't know.
me, because I sent you 3 leads on 3 companies that provide the service. for governments and businesses. About, I would say about 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, all this started.
Thank you, thank you.
The only thing that really, I thought my mind was on page 6, where you're recommending that the phone calls, that the phones only go to phone calls only. I could see where the on-call phones would need to have internet, because if I'm not mistaken, the water system, computer sends, need to be linked to the cell phone, but you gotta have the internet capability on the cell phone for that to work.
You have to have internet on the well, then it sends out text. So as long as the cell phone has text, it'll work.
And then if the police department wants to be able to view the security cameras, want to get the security cameras upgraded, if they get a report of something going on at the park, that they can pull it up on the phone, view the video of it, and record it.
Each of our patrol cars has a computer in it. And they're trying to investigate.
I have a blue card from Manual System about policies.
Quick. I mentioned I would not include TD Bank credit cards. I would just say bank credit cards or city credit cards, so that if we change the bank, we don't have to change the policy. And a question on the expense management system, how expensive is that on credit card?
It's not so much the expense as it is, the expense justifies our need to have that information readily available to the public. So it's really not about the expense per se on one credit card. It's the ability for us to go ahead and respond quickly to why is this charge here, if someone had a question over why. That's really what it is more about for me. I can't speak for the rest of the commission, obviously. But it's important to have that information chain of control, the care, custody, and control. And so if it's a small fee for that ability to be transparent in our credit card activities, then it's worth it a penny to me.
Maybe a service that's offered as well. I know American Express credit card has the capability, and it's offered to their customers who don't necessarily have to pay. So it might maybe be a lot of
Sorry.
Maybe there's some cards that just do that for you.
Thank you.
My next question was, is the city eligible for state contract pricing? And why aren't we using the system from the state?
Why are we using that?
Why aren't we getting our cell phones through the state contract?
I don't know what I'm about to say the truth for cell phones, but there are many occasions I've gone to state contract for equipment, and we can actually get cheaper over
Well, I use state contracting in pricing in my company, and I've got over 20 cell phones in my phone bill. It's $53 a month, and they give you the phones. So it's just cheaper, I'll get you the
There you
And wasn't there, isn't there, weren't there a bunch of phones that were on the side for hurricane usage that we paid for?
Yeah, 55 hurricane emergency devices.
And those are active and,
They are, I think they're 50 cents a month until you use them. And then we pay for it. I don't think we need that many, though, if we need any at all.
I don't know what those are, but.
They're just kind of phones that sit in a box, and then if we have a hurricane or an emergency, we could give them out to volunteers. I think was the thought.
Have they ever been used?
Probably don't work that well.
Let's
not have a conversation.
Well, thank you.
Did it come to back?
That whole idea probably predates most individuals having their own cell
That
phone,
was my
which
first.
is almost universal now.
Like a little carry-on luggage there.
Well, thank you, staff, very much for this report and for your diligence in pursuing all these many questions, valid questions. I do appreciate it.
And Mayor, can we get this updated monthly as staff is working through some?
Great idea.
Are you asking whether we report?
Yeah, no, I think you guys are doing a great job. And I think you're getting a lot of things answered, but when you get to where, staff recommendations, further action, just to report on, okay, what we did, and this is what we do, and that happens something, as we go little by little, there's nothing left on it.
I don't think we've ever passed up the opportunity to brag.
Okay.
Yeah, please do, brag about this, this is important stuff.
I didn't see a blue card on this, but if you want to speak.
On investigation.
Okay,
Report, yeah.
I misplaced it. Come on up, Ms. Fisher. I don't want to ignore you, absolutely.
I don't know where this whole thing went off the rails, because I appreciate the time and energy the staff and city has put into the policy change. However, there have always been policies in place, and they worked well for many years. The problems occurred when the administration and department heads arbitrarily took it upon themselves to not follow the policies already in place. It is not the policies that need changing, it's the culture. Policies need to be put in place, yes, but most importantly, they must be followed.
And that's a very valid point. The culture, I believe, has largely changed, and you're absolutely right. Here. Okay, next item, which we created at the beginning of the meeting, is item H. It's a very important one. For tonight, I just want to do additional discussion. We don't need to take any action tonight, but I want to discuss the charter review report that we got and see if y'all have any additional things you want to weigh in on. As you mentioned earlier, this is our one chance to bat things around a little bit, so that next meeting, when we do need to start taking actions, because we're going to get up against time frames, we're not coming at it cold. So let's take a little time if we can, just up here, or anybody who wants to weigh in on the charter review. Does anybody want to start the ball rolling?
I'll be happy to start. I know it's going to cost more money, and I know it's going to be a little more work to have a free point. What's that? Yes, rather than one, because we saw a couple of items the last time derail the whole thing. And with that said, I would prefer to go to 3 point, just so we can take care of the boilerplate part of it. And then do some of the other things that, we're working on to be working on, discussion.
Be 3 resolutions instead of 1.
Yes.
Yeah, that was our mistake, when Rick and I sat on the committee prior, we packaged it all together in one amendment.
I don't know that it was a mistake, but it did, we learn every time we do something, we learn. That doesn't mean it was a mistake to try.
Oh, okay, I consider it as a mistake, but,
Well,
okay, thank you.
Yeah, when you put 100 hours in on something, and you get done with it, you feel like you have a pretty good understanding of what's going on. When somebody sits in the ballot box, in the booth, and they go to vote, and all they have is the residue, if you will, of all of that work.
Yeah.
It's impossible for them to be able to come through.
Indeed.
So 2 things that we didn't do well was, one, do a really good job of explaining to the public that some of this stuff that we're asking you to change on a ballot, we're already doing it this way. Okay, whether it's by state mandate or it's just because that's the way systems have evolved, and it's the only way we can do it now. And so that's the boilerplate. The other things, once again, I think we're already doing it that way in many ways, but, and I don't think hiring people in a public arena is the right thing to do. And that's why I'm very favor of number 2. The 4-year terms, they can come or they can go. It doesn't matter to me. When I did the original research on that, 87% of the time, when somebody runs for 1 term, they'll run 87% of the time, they're elected the second time. So to me, it was just a cost savings. If it gives our constituents modular, it's not that important. of a change. All it does is save the city money. And,
Well, I mean, for the benefit or misbenefit to the staff, city leadership changes every year under the current term. Has the potential, I should say, of changing every year. Let me rephrase that. So, and it's been fine, but it'll be fine the other way as well too. So I'm like you.
Free resolution.
Yeah. I agree with the three resolutions. I'll throw in a personal note that you talk about walk into the voting booth and there's a thing that you perhaps never heard about. You've heard people grumbling in the city about this, that, and the other. And when I walk into a voting booth and see something, I have to admit, I'm usually very cynical as to whether I can even believe what that 75-word introduction says. Half the time, the reality is exactly opposite of what they said. So my tendency is to vote no on everything unless I fully understand it. And I think that's a normal way for many of our citizens to approach it. So I think we get a lot of no votes because of that. You see a whole bunch of things lumped in, no thank you. So this will give an opportunity to simplify it. Even though three sounds more complicated than one, I think it simplifies each one of them. I may be wrong, but we've tried the other and
they didn't work.
That didn't work, so let's try this and hopefully it will. And I believe, like you said, the boilerplate stuff is important. Our city attorney said, the committee, the Charter Review Committee said that their most important recommendation was the boilerplate stuff, if you will, the housekeeping items. That's critical. And if we separate that out, people understand that. And things like giving more power to the city administrator, which has been a hot button in the city, that isolating that out, that may or may not fly. I have reservations about it as well. Everything has pros and cons. I have reservations on that. I also have major reservations on doing hiring and firing while we're sitting here in public meeting. That gets even uglier. So both sides of that are difficult. But the separating that out, making it a valid issue in and of itself, I think is very valid and very respectful of the citizens as they're voting. I think it really gives them the opportunity to vote directly on an item like that. I think that's respectful of their vote. Any other discussion? Again, I just wanted to have discussion time as we go forward. We don't have to decide anything tonight.
I think that some way, somehow, whether it's on board, whether it's on whatever, making the public in general know that as often as possible that this is going to be on the ballot. Here it is. Here's the information. If you have any question, call your zoning commissioner, call your come and ask staff, whatever. Because the second part of it, besides this dissecting it, was just not educating the consumers, not the consumers, the citizens. And that's our responsibility. It is. And so, anyway, I'll leave it up there.
The only thing I was going to say is what I would envision having to do is prepare 3 charters. One charter reflecting the change in each question. And so that, so when people look at it, they'll have 3 different charters. Like, approved ballot question 1, this is what the charter will change, the charter will be same with 2, same with 3. And then they can put in the boundaries to say that's all 3 passed.
Well, you have that A, B, C, A, B, B, C, A, C, and
there's 3 factorial.
Yeah, you got the choices. But I think what will end up happening is then we will, after the vote, depending on what passes, then we'll go back and ordinance modifying the charter, like whatever passes.
I think the key to that document, or documents, is making sure that it's really easy to discern the difference between one and the next. In other words, the difference between the old charter and the new, and the difference between what it would look like with 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1, 2, and 3.
Well,
and I don't
think
think
we can do every permutation. I don't think that would be a little much, but I think what I can do, what I would suggest we do is say, if you approve question 1, this is what the charter will look like. If you approve question 2, this is what the charter looks like.
Yeah.
If it approves question 3, this is what the charter looks like.
Yeah.
Now, you,
I guess what I'm
two,
saying is,
3, or all 3, you gotta combine them together.
what I'm saying is when you, okay, if you approve one, this is what it is. When you go to 2, now you're reading the whole thing all over again and to find that one thing that's going to change everything. So you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Because when it becomes so
First one
boring,
will take a lot of changes, because that's the one to clean up a little bit, so that's gonna take the most changes. The next 2 will be minimal.
right,
So maybe we can just put that page there and say, this is what the change, this is what the charter.
there you go. That's all.
That's what.
You want to be able to do that?
I guess I was thinking to the committee that put this together for us, I'm sure this is a lot of thought given to it, and I appreciate having it written out, just make it easy.
Absolutely.
You know, the last time we did this, the city commission gave us a little bit of a token of appreciation, a really cool pin, wooden pin engraved, you know.
That's interesting.
Mayor Snowden. Mayor Snowden, so I would, it's okay with you guys. I mean, I think we ought to give them a little bit of, yeah, a little bit of love.
Would you like to do that, or you?
I can pick up something pretty easy, but I'll just turn it over to Dominique, she'll handle it all, and it's something you just, it's still a company.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, good, well, I'll go ahead, and if you don't mind, I'll take the lead on that, and if you guys want a pin, it's $35 each, okay?
Okay. Thank you for coming with your ideas, and I appreciate it. Time now is for item 6, public forum. Charlie Bishop. Okay, and Chair. And please state your name and address when you get the podium.
Mark Lee Parrish, 139 West Park Street, Commissioner, Mayor. I just wanted to comment at the end of the meeting tonight on points of order, regular order. We use the cards, I do see the clock going. 3 minutes is a long time. I have seen a couple times at meetings, various times when things get heated, that an allegation from one citizen to the against another is made. I would just say that I would really hope that would not be discussed amongst the commissioners and you, Mayor, as though that allegation is true. And it's up to you as chair to halt that and close that discussion down. I don't know what that is like in the legal weeds, but I don't think it's just the greatest look for the city commission.
Okay, and thank you, and I appreciate that. I'm gonna address that for a minute. Go ahead and sit down, that's fine. I have struggled with this as well. It's difficult running the gavel up here, and it's difficult. We're all involved, at various levels of different things that come before us. And I've gotten many comments from the audience over things because, and I get the impulse because things fit right then. Also, sometimes they're allegations as opposed to just public comments, and that's very detrimental to the setting and to the system. They are out of order. I've gaveled people down, attempted to, because I had to say it again because I interrupted them with a gavel. But, so there's a limit to what I can do, but I do want to run more than you. I do want to limit, I want us all to limit out of order comments. I try and recognize everybody as we go through each discussion, and I want to keep that orderliness about it as much as I can. So I appreciate y'all's help in that, and you have been very helpful and supportive in that. Sometimes it just makes more sense to go back and forth, but sometimes, often, I just let that go back and forth because the discussion needs to happen. When I do try and assert myself, y'all have been very helpful with me, and I appreciate that.
Mr. Parrish is correct in that
See, there you
assertion,
go.
and this, the whole deliberations between the public and the commission need to be professional
Yes.
and well above that emotional level as much as possible. It's difficult, I get it, but that is your job.
It is difficult, and I try not to be a tyrant, but then again, sometimes I need to be a little bit more assertive. I take that point. I will endeavor to be just that. Certainly allegations don't belong anywhere, which is one of the significant parts of your point. Allegations back and forth are really out of line and out of order. So it's all work to not do that.
The balance, my time.
Sure. Thank you for returning to the podium and asking. Mr. Perry.
It's lots of what you said, but.
That's okay, go right.
So the broader point was that such an allegation not be discussed on facts. And that's, that was my observation where I think that it got a little bit in the weeds.
You're right. You're right. Allegations, and then they get picked up on the dais. It's a comment is well on point. I appreciate it. Commission and staff discussion. Okay, let's do it the old fashioned way. Any zone reports? Any, zone one, do you have any report?
Not today.
Zone two?
While everybody's thinking about it, if you can keep, Johnny Travis's family in your prayers, they had a loss in their family. Their funeral service is going to be Saturday at New Hope Baptist Church in Deltona on Daytona Vista Road. Don't know what time or all the specifics of it, but just keep their family in your prayers and a conference and stuff like that so that they can get through this week. They canceled all their activities this week at the Massey Funeral Center because of it.
Thank you. Zone three?
It's been brought to your attention this evening that I sent a text and email to the mayor asking him to move the public forum to the end of it. In the last 15 years I've sat up here, it seemed like the public forum had degraded into a complaint session that cast a negative cloud over the meetings. And it's difficult enough to do our job without, feeling oppressed. It's also very difficult to get volunteers to join and give their time. And when, they have to be under that same cloud. So I did it for a positive reason. I didn't do it for a negative reason. And, because I'm a firm believer in positivity. I'm a firm believer in compromise. And, that's where I'd like to go. Thank you.
Zone four?
I have nothing to add tonight, Mayor, thank you.
I'll kick in on add to what Commissioner Basso was saying. Public forum is the newest of the new business. Typical order, you get old business, new business, and public forum is when things are brought to us that haven't even been on the agenda at all. So in my mind, it makes sense. It makes sense to have it at the end. We have open discussion with anybody wanting to chime in on any of the agenda items, bringing it to the end. And I agree, we were having some very negative times, and dealing with that at the end has, I think, helped. The other thing it did was sometimes public forum items generated a great deal of discussion, and then items such as committee reports from, let's just use the Historic Preservation Board. We've got a consultant here waiting to do his presentation, and we don't get to him until 11:30. So it was really creating problems like that, and other members of the public, or presentations of various kinds, not just from committees or boards, but from anybody who's going to make a presentation, engineers or whoever. So that was one of the reasons I moved it to the end as well. Having that prompted, I don't even remember when that happened, but I appreciated it. I think it's been helpful. And I'm always open for suggestions as to how to make things better from anybody. I am appreciative. Okay, we've done the commission now. Does staff have any additional comments? Y'all,
I just have one. Derek Winston, our city engineer, has resigned from his company, ECP. He had had a contract since 1988, and has moved to a company called Pond Engineering out of Jacksonville. He'll be leaving his company on April 1st. And he's working now with his old company, his new company, to work out an arrangement will be able to keep his services and contracts already active. So we won't see much difference in the ones already ongoing. But eventually, we're going to have to go through a process called CCNA. It's the Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act.
One more time, so I can, what was that?
It's competitive.
Consultants Competitive Negotiation.
Thank you.
CCA is the name of
CCNA.
that? CCNA is the name of that. Okay.
It's a strange, I think it's a strange process, but we have to advertise for firms that want to be our engineers, and have to demonstrate the qualifications. And of course, no dollars are exchanged because engineers are above that, I guess. But anyway,
It's for engineers, architects, there's something called a continuing contract that most cities have. You will retain engineering firms to provide continuing services. There's limits on what those can be based on the cost of the project or the study fee, the cost of the study. If you exceed the cost of the project or cost of the study, then you have to go out and do a CCNA just for that project. But the dollar threshold has been increasing regularly over the years, so it takes a pretty sizable project. I have to look it up again, but I think a project over $2 million, something like that.
And it's CCNA?
Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act.
Because this has come, the acronym, I mean, the initials are coming up with all over Cisco, so.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So it's Consultants Competitive Negotiation.
Consultants Competitive, okay, there we go.
And I mentioned it because I think Derek's been very good for the community. We will attempt to keep them, but it's up to the CCNA process. I don't know if you know the two organizations, one company, keeping the work with us, hopefully, project already started, but we have to go through that process probably a couple months.
sounds like the CCNA might be triggered, that dollar threshold, if we go into the grant for $8-something million, that might trigger that threshold. Whereas normally we don't. But y'all can look at that and let us know.
Was it a surprise?
Not really. He's been, let's not record. He's been unhappy with his previous employer for some time.
You don't want to put the record.
Yeah, I don't want to put that in the record.
He has let us know that he was planning on moving on.
Yeah, and he's been very forthright. So anyway, that's just something that you'll be seeing in staff and through the CCNA started process. One's going to go on. What happened in several months. And it's a pretty strange process.
One last comment, from me. I answered an email, this week, which said that I had made disparaging remarks about previous commissions and administrations and staff. And if I have done that, I apologize. I generally don't disparage anybody up here or on staff on the record. I mean, my business philosophy has always been praise publicly and discipline privately. You know, if I've got a problem with somebody, I can't do it with y'all because it's sunshine, but if I've got a problem with the way Mr. Epic is bringing something to us, I'll talk to him personally about it. But I'm not gonna come up here and just immediately dive in on him publicly when he hadn't heard first word privately. It's an old philosophy. I didn't create it, but that's what I try and do if I inadvertently did disparage any of y'all, any previous commission, or any previous administration, or any previous staff, I apologize. Because honestly, I think the city has, on balance, received tremendous work from everybody that's been involved in it, on this dais and the staff. Everybody's got their warts, but everybody's done a lot of good hard work, and I appreciate it. I think the city is sitting in a really good place, considering how modest we are and how little we have to work with. We've done wonderful things, and I have nothing but praise for it. So,
Okay, Mayor. The continuing contract is allowed for projects that do not exceed $4 million. Study activity, if the fee for professional service for each individual study under the contract does not exceed $500,000. And then this is the one that the engineer has always had their hat on. If it's work of a specified nature in the contract, regardless of the value. Some cities you'll see will have multiple firms under continuing contracts for specialized areas. Whether it's stormwater, whether it's along the coast, it could be engineering for seawalls and things like that. But it used to be 250,000 instead of $4 million. That's pretty precise contract. But what you still have to go through the CCNA process, but instead of for each project, you retain engineers for under a continuing contract, and then as work comes available, cities will decide which engineering firm they want to utilize and give the work order to under that continuing contract.
it certainly makes sense that firms would have strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
A seawall firm, I could see not to be. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thank you. Anything further? Meeting adjourned.
Okey dokey.